Hello, how's it going? I'm covering this live. What's up? So this is a very casual stream, as you can see. I have a hoodie on. I'm cold in the house, but this is happening. So this is going to be a very informal, not like your typical, rational live stream on Fridays. We'll watch some of CBC's coverage. I will when we're not listening to it, I'll have it in the background just so there's something to look at. But I'll also go over, questions people have, what's been going on. We can talk about the Emergencies Act if you want, and some other stuff, and just basically convoy coverage. But feel free to ask, if you got super chats about anything else. It doesn't have to be convoy related, but for the most part, convoy. So this is what's happening now. You have police services from all across the province, and I think even potentially across the country, coming into Ottawa to deal with the occupiers that are still there. It's so far been very incredibly non-violent. This is the first time I've seen any officers wearing like any protective equipment. So you got some face shields here, but for the most part, it's just been, there's no tear gas, there's no riot gear. It's been very peaceful in terms of the way the police have been going about this. When you look at what the protesters there have been doing, there was reports, at least from Ottawa police, so big caveat there because it might not be true. They may just be playing it up. But according to them, they've seen, and actually according to, I heard a reporter on here as well also echo this, but there have been protesters, or I should say occupiers, putting their children, let me bring this tweet up, putting their children in between them and the police. Now, that may not be going on anymore, but according to the police, as I'll show you right here, this was happening. So they tweeted this out about an hour ago, just an hour and a half ago. Protesters have put children between police operations and the... Yeah, an hour and a half ago. Sorry, I'm getting my times confused. Putting children between police operations and the unlawful protest site. The children will be brought to a place of safety. So, again, it's the police reporting this. We don't know if that's true. That said, I did see a family walk out of there they had like 5 kids. So it looks like maybe an uncle, a brother, or maybe it was their father got arrested, and then the family followed behind. Actually, I think I have an off the screen image or video of that, so we can take a look at that as well. Here we go. So this was shared by Dean Blundell. The kid behind the sign is bawling. Parents knew this was going to traumatize their kids and just don't care. So let me play the audio here.
Tearful family, some young children,
It's off the TV, so you can barely hear it, but.
Family, some young children. We're gonna show you that next here. So I can see in front of me a young family. They are falling behind. They've got a sign in their hand. Tearful, upset. This is obviously an entire family following along, as it appears maybe one of their family members was involved in this. These children are hiding behind this.
Imagine bringing your kids here. But that's what they did. And since the Emergencies Act came into play, having kids within, I think, a 500-mile radius or yard radius, something like that, became illegal. So it was illegal to have your kids here at this point. But just absolutely wild, the shit that's going on. I just realized I did not tweet this out. So let me tweet out this stream. And as I said at the beginning of this is very informal. So we're just going to go over, a bunch of information that's been coming out. Go over some of the details around the Emergencies Act and questions people may have about that, and some thoughts on both sides of that perspective, or people for that and against that. Norm says, Dave from BC, sometimes you are out to lunch. Well, thank you, Norm. Be more specific next time. Let me tweet this out 1 second. So there is a lot of bullshit around this being a working I've done several videos on this now, but since not everyone watches all these videos, I have to reiterate myself. I have to, reiterate these points. This is not a working class uprising, not in the least. Truckers didn't even organize this. This is not organized by even truckers. So let me, again, finish this tweet. Me doing 1,000 things at once does not really work out in my favor. Okay. Now, what was I saying? So in terms of the yes, we have child protective services. I'm not sure if last I heard they're not. I don't know. There's been no apparent reports of them being called in to deal with that with the kids that are there, but there's always a potential for that. So it looks like there's some action going on here. Let me just put the audio up.
To Rideau Street, the capturing of the command leadership of this movement, if you will, to try to demoralize and shake some of the soft protesters and convince them into leaving. And now that steady march westward up Wellington to the French.
All right. Somebody said truckers' wages matter. Yeah, this has nothing to do with truckers' weight. Like this is not brought up at all. This was initially about a mandate, a vaccine mandate on truckers crossing the border. So right now there's vaccine mandates for hospital workers, for people that work in schools, and for, crossing the border for truckers. The initial protest was supposed to be about protesting that. Even though this was not organized by truckers, the truckers union is against this convoy, or the unions that represent truckers are against it. Organizations that are there's 3 different organizations that have been vocal that represent truckers during all this, and they've all been against this convoy. 90% of truckers are vaccinated. I imagine a large majority of them support those vaccine mandates in those very specific areas, as most Canadians do. They're still out there doing their job. There's like 230,000 truckers roughly in Canada. So, when you see half a dozen here, or, a couple dozen trucks downtown, it seems like a lot of people. But when you're looking at thinking about 230,000 truckers, and there's like maybe, 30 trucks downtown, it's not a lot of people. So the ones that have been taken in by this have been taken in by a lot of the anti-vaccine, a lot of the conspiracy bull crap. I mean, all the F Trudeau flags, which I don't care for Trudeau either, but one of the organizers, their aim is to take down the government. That's not what happened to the public measures? What happened to the public health measures? It's really turned into a far right-wing extremist movement if it was anything different before. So even if you want to grant them that the initial protest was about the vaccine mandate, that's not what it ended up being. So it's become a lot more than just that. And Norm says this is anti-Trudeau. Okay, thank you, Norm. So it's become a lot more than just a mandate about crossing the border. And by the way, if you want to, I don't agree with that protest, but if you want to peacefully protest against mandates, fine. You can do that. I don't care. That's whatever. That's your prerogative. But that's not what this has become. They have been harassing people that live downtown in Ottawa, people that wear masks, that live in the area. They start yelling at them. They harass them. They've been harassing people that work at hotels, at restaurants, walking in there, completely defying the public health measures when it comes to wearing masks indoors. None of them are doing it. They go into these places in crowds and just, inundate the poor workers that are on the front lines of all this bullshit. So it's been just a lot of harassing going on. And yes, there's, peaceful people there as well, people chilling in hot tubs, and there's bouncy castles for kids. Like, yeah, there are peaceful elements going on, but that's not what this actually is about. They are not fighting for working class truckers. They are not even really fighting against the health mandates anymore. It's really about taking down the Trudeau government, which is just completely absurd. Like, it's the people here are just completely, living in some other reality. So, I've seen a lot of bullshit about people thinking this is about truckers when it's not. I just want to point you, if you need a resource, just a easy article just to read or share around, let me point you to one right now. This is in Passage. I am a member of Passage. I like to support independent media, so I support Passage. But here, this is from Adam DK King. The trucker convoy is not a workers' revolt. Now, this is a great, fantastic breakdown about who's actually there. The truckers that are there are the bosses that can afford to take, off 3 weeks to do something like this. So the vast majority of them aren't actually even working class. But this goes deep into the actual issues that truckers face when it comes to wage theft, when it comes to being misclassified as contractors by their employer. That way that their employer can skirt regulators. So they should be classified as employees, but their boss is getting away with treating them poorly by classifying them as contractors. But anyways, this is a great piece. So just all you gotta do, search up Passage or readpassage.com and search up Adam DK King, or search up this title, The Trucker Convoy is Not a Workers' Revolt. Read Passage. I think I can link in the chat. Maybe I'll just do that. And then there you go. Easy link. So that's how you learn what more this is about. Norm says I emailed you. Thank you for all your donations, Norm. I don't care. Patricel White says troll overlord. Well, that's gonna happen. So it doesn't matter. But there are so many angles, like it's hard for me to even know where to begin here. So let me I'll put this audio up as I gather some links here, and you can check out what's happening.
Big rigs leaving the area today. There perhaps have been more, but we've only witnessed just a few of truckers leaving of their own volition from this area.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, that they are leaving. It took quite a few warnings, and today seems to be the final one for them, that if they don't leave, they will be arrested. Their cars could be seized and their licenses suspended. Now, we're looking at shots right now, and I would say that's probably a couple blocks away from where you are currently behind you. We see many different police units there. They are pretty calm. They're just kind of holding the line at this time. When I was talking to police before they moved up to that point, they say what they do is they move a certain section, they regroup, they learn the lessons, and then that's when they move into the next section. So they're kind of taking it section by section. What's the feel from you and the police down there?
Not huge police numbers right here around Parliament Hill, Hannah, for protesters who perhaps have not been following the very latest, perhaps have not seen those sometimes dramatic arrests a few blocks away, or the towing of vehicles. They might not be aware that police are surrounding them in greater numbers. Ontario Provincial Police, RCMP, and indeed Quebec Provincial Police and other from across the province and beyond.
All right, just a quick, as I've been going through some of this stuff is just quick, so I'll just, list this off. But this tweet here from, I believe he's a journalist, but says, Ottawa Citizen, newspaper journalist, says protesters and their supporters flood 911 with fake calls to try to disrupt police operations, police say. So that's also been going on.
signs, the truck, and people looking down, they would be facing that shot there. They would be facing the Rideau Center. And in front of them is the police line. That is where currently the police are. Right in front of those people, you can see they're looking down. They're waiting for them to move forward. The police are waiting to go into that crowd. You can see all the signs they've put up in the snow. I walked through that. I would call it an encampment on my way back. They were blaring music. They've really set up in there, and there are quite a few trucks. You see the photographers waiting as well. You can tell that as they're walking into this encampment, this is very entrenched. They have been there for 22 days. And Thomas, if you can see behind you, I think that's what we're looking at right now, is that crowd kind of waiting to see what will happen, what the next move of the police are, and police are likely trying to decide that too. But now we are also hearing more of those horns downtown as well. Have you been seeing more people as we've been chatting here gather at the National War Memorial as well?
Yeah, I'm not in the minds of the protesters, but I can tell you they are gathering in greater numbers, perhaps expecting a face-off with officers, or at the very least, getting a position where they can witness and get a better look at the advance from officers if indeed they do move in here over the next coming minutes or hours. We're, a couple hundred meters away, I believe, as far as I can tell, from the police line, as officers may be regrouping here. But National War Memorial, again, just to situate where we are here, the National War Memorial across the street with a growing number of officers, a growing number of protesters.
So you can see how calm it is. If this was, and we've seen it. If these were Indigenous protesters, it would be a much different story. And also, by the way, there wouldn't be this kind of like 24/7 coverage. CBC News doesn't normally cover a story live like this, just all the way through, like events like this. There have been, various blockades when it comes to pipelines, land defenders out there getting arrested for their actual peaceful protesting, and none of that's covered. You don't have live cameras there. There isn't a live show about that for 8 hours in the day. But here they got all this attention. So it's a very different over here. It's a very different situation. This had the amount of attention this has received is truly unbelievable, because this really isn't that big of a deal in terms of the cops coming in here and 3 weeks. The big deal aspect of this is that it took 3 weeks for this to happen. It's normally a lot quicker if anyone else was doing this protesting. That isn't to say I encourage it. I don't encourage it, but it's just to show you the hypocrisy here. Depending on who is doing the protesting or who is doing the occupying, it's a much different response from law enforcement, which is why the government felt the need to invoke the Emergencies Act, because law enforcement were not doing their job. But then you see them here, at least in some cases, doing their jobs, which again makes you wonder, what was the need for the Emergencies Act if they are finally willing to arrest some of these people? Because it shouldn't have taken the act, invoking the act to do it. But ultimately, the other part of it was that, assuming there wasn't any real arresting going on here, I think the intention from the government was to try and discourage some of these people, push them out by threatening the freezing of accounts, by threatening taking their licenses away. And I think in some cases that has worked, and some truckers have left even before this. But now you're kind of seeing whoever's left in downtown Ottawa getting faced with law enforcement. Ryan Owicki says, truckers block road, U.S. conservatives. Yay, freedom. BLM protesters block road. U.S. conservative states pass law protecting those who run over protesters. Yeah. In fact, I know Florida did that. I think Florida was the only state to pass a law where you can actually run over protesters. But that's crazy. Folding Insider says, hard to stomach that this bullshit started the same day as the 50th year anniversary of Bloody Sunday, where 14 people were murdered in a civil rights march. Well, clearly a little different situation here, but yeah.
Well, I think what we've seen so far is really the bare minimum use of force by the police, and it is because the protesters really, other than trying to stand their ground and pushing back a bit, are not really resisting the police. And so, you know, in Canada, this is the bare minimum of basically an unlawful assembly and how it will get dispersed by the police. Very, very professional. Very proud of the.
When even a former cop has to admit that, yeah, the cops here aren't really doing much, shows you how little they are doing. But this is how they should treat every protest. This sort of attempt to de-escalate, this peaceful attempt to try and break up these occupiers. If they're going to come in and act on a protest like this, this is the more preferable approach, as opposed to, like, I don't want to see them, in riot gear abusing people. I don't want to see them do that anywhere. So this is the correct approach, but it's crazy to see that they are doing this only in this situation. If you had a group here of Indigenous protesters who, for some reason, were allowed by the state to occupy Ottawa for 3 weeks, which it would never happen, that would have been shut down in 12 hours. But if for some reason that was able to go on for 3 weeks, there would be a much different approach here than what you are currently seeing. And the most charitable take is maybe it's because there's children there, because protesters really don't care about their kids apparently, and brought their kids into this. So maybe there is this sort of again, this is the most charitable take, that there is this unwillingness to beat people when kids could be in the middle of it. But this has been 3 weeks. So, if that was the reasoning, I think we would have seen a little more action before now.
In them, but what is your sense of how that plays out?
Well, that's a discretion on the police officers at the scene. Those that were encamped really in front of the Parliament buildings that were so disgraceful to our country, really. Even though they're driving away now, probably, in my opinion, should have been arrested and their vehicles seized. The point being is we don't know what's inside many of these vehicles. We've seen what happened out west. We hope that doesn't happen here. It is extremely dangerous when the front line of police officers are standing in front of a large tractor trailer unit that's starting up and could be used as a weapon. And so they have to proceed with caution, that's for sure.
And Hannah, you wanted to jump in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. This is Hannah Thibodeau in Ottawa. Thank you for taking the time with us today. One of the questions, the police are getting closer and closer to the area where the main core group has been for the past 22 days. Is that a more concerning situation than maybe the outer perimeter?
I'm not sure about more concerning. I thought yesterday that they would start on the perimeter and work their way closer to in front of the Parliament buildings. And even though that's where a lot of the public have seen the media coverage, I always thought that would be the last area to be touched. And I think that's what we're seeing now. Slowly, the police are converging and pushing the crowd closer and closer together, giving them an opportunity to leave. I have no idea why you would want to stand in a crowd knowing that you're going to get arrested. It's unfathomable. And people sitting in the truck knowing that they have an opportunity to leave, could have left days ago, but their rigs could be seized. They could get a criminal record. If they get a criminal record, good luck crossing the border as a trucker. And so there are so many things that these people have not thought through logically.
And that really shows you the people that are still down there, like a lot of the ones that, are not the organizers, the ones that have just been fooled into thinking this is about their freedoms, they are just completely brainwashed into not realizing they are in the middle right now of destroying their own lives, standing up for absolutely nothing, standing up against basic health measures in a pandemic. Oh, you don't want to wear a mask indoors. That's why you're going to sit there, get arrested, have a criminal record, lose your job, be unable to cross the border now if you are a trucker. Like, it's just complete madness to think that they're sitting here because they don't want to get a shot, a vaccine. I'm sure everyone here has a vaccine of some sort, vaccinated after they were born. We have to be to go to school, to participate in society. They have vaccines. But this vaccine, this is the scary one. Can't get this one. It's my freedoms. Now I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my livelihood. I'm going to have a criminal record over not wanting to get poked with a needle. These people are, it's sad, ultimately, is what it is. And I feel bad for the people that fell into it. I don't feel bad for the organizers that fooled people into this being about simply health measures when all of a sudden they're calling to, take down the government. It's not about health measures. I mean, that's part of what the people joining it think it is. But in terms of what the organizers have pushed and their history and the shit they have said in the past, a lot of that is well documented. Look up Pat King, look up his various videos of the garbage he's been spewing. So yeah, not about truckers. It's about this far right-wing ideology and them using these sorts of people that have been taken in by these conspiracies around vaccines, around COVID, around masks, taking these people and funneling them into their own right-wing movement and message as a way to fundraise and grow their movement. And we saw that as well during the election with the People's Party of Canada, using the exact same tactic, the anti-vaccine tactic, try to get those people in, funneling those conspiracy theorists into their party, cutting off, some voters from conservatives, even some from, the Green Party and other parties that had that anti-vax sentiment for whatever reason. Largely Facebook, I imagine, but getting those people and funneling them into their own twisted ideology. Riaz Guerrera says, some outlets like Breaking Points are desperate to paint this protest as a legit, organic, working class protest. But when the funding, as exposed by The Intercept, is right-wing and American, should this framing be quashed? I actually haven't seen The Intercept's reporting on this, but yes, there's a lot of reporting showing it's not a working class protest or uprising. But to be fair, I haven't seen Breaking Point's coverage of this, so I'm not going to. I can't personally claim that their coverage has been bunk because I haven't seen it. But if that's what they are claiming, that this is a working class organic protest, it's not. it's very clearly not working class when the people organizing it aren't even truckers, and they're not fighting against issues of wage theft. They're not fighting against issues of misclassifying truckers as contractors. They're not raising actual economic issues facing truckers, the safety issues they face. None of this is being brought up because it's not a working class uprising. It's not about the working class at all. And I mean, the other big giveaway there is you've had Fox News praise this for the past few weeks. Would Fox News, not just Tucker, who also tries to play that game, but Fox News blanketly, like every show, has been praising this. Would they praise a working class uprising? Would they praise a labor movement? No, of course not. So to think that this is about labor is so completely just, it's absurd. And it's just plain wrong. I mean, any basic research would inform you about that. And again, if you're coming late to this, check out this piece and passage. The trucker convoy is not a workers' revolt. And a lot of details in here. This guy has a history of doing research on what the issues that truckers actually face and who has been a part of this convoy that at least the ones that are truckers, and exposing how they're the bosses, they aren't the employees. So, a lot going on here, but this is a great piece. Again, look up The Trucker Convoy is not a workers' revolt in Read Passage.
So all of these people who are facing criminal charges will move through the criminal system much like anybody else who's been charged with a criminal offense. So the first thing that happens is the police make a determination about whether these people will be held for a bail hearing. And if they are, then they'll be held for that hearing, and a decision will be made about whether they are essentially released on bail or kept in jail pending the resolution of their case. So a case can be resolved in a number of ways, either going to a trial, through a guilty plea, or charges being withdrawn. So that's sort of the first step. There's a determination about whether these people will be released. And from there, they'll report to court in the usual course. So there will be an initial court date scheduled, and their case will start moving through the criminal system.
So if they were released on bail and they went back into these protests, what would happen?
So in that type of situation, usually you will see conditions placed on individuals who are released on bail that reflect the type of allegation made against them. So for example, a person might be directed or ordered by the court if released on bail that they're not to associate with certain people, for example, because those are the people who were involved in committing the offense. So if a person returned to a
I mean, you could see some of these signs like Save Canada. It's not about vaccines. It's about freedom, mandate freedom, support no masks. It's sad. It's sad what people have fallen into. We're in a pandemic. Basic public health measures. That's wear a mask. Wear a mask indoors. This is like, if this is the worst thing you face in your life, it really says a lot about you. It's unbelievable. Michael Raywet says, greetings from Saskatchewan. TRN is my top 3 channels for political content of many. Thanks for your hard work, David. Thank you, Michael. Riaz Guerrera says, thanks, David. There needs to be a discussion about what is a legit working class protest. If you can fool a few working class folks to attend your protest, it doesn't make it a representative grievance. Exactly. Mustache Mahoney says, keep up the great work. Thank you, Mustache. And Reagan Wolfbane, thank you for your super chat as well. So I'm going to bring up some more. I'll bring up another article or two. Maybe we can discuss more on the Emergencies Act specifically. And if people got questions about that, I can do my best to answer those. So, yeah, let me play this for now, and I'll collect some. Some things.
And here are the protesters. As you can see, some of these trucks entrenched in this encampment. That's just across from the Rideau Canal near the Rideau Centre and just very close to Parliament Hill, probably just a couple of 100 meters from Parliament Hill, as we've seen these snowbanks being built up, as the CBC's Thomas Dagley has seen. And then we can see some police officers with the binoculars looking out at the situation, some barricades that have been set up, and lots of signs stating the reason why people there have said that they are there. But still, a fair number of people that are on the streets just outside of Parliament Hill. This is near the Chateau Laurier. And a large police presence there, and many trucks that still have drivers in them and don't appear to be going anywhere soon. But this is an illegal demonstration, and people who are in this area could face arrest. Evan Dyer is on Wellington Street in front of the Terry Fox statue. And speaking of arrests, Evan, I understand that you have witnessed some.
Well, we've seen a couple of dozen arrests. I haven't seen any here, I must say, in this particular area. The barricades here there's actually a double line of fences that separate Parliament now from Wellington Street, but there's not a heavy police presence in and among the crowd on Wellington Street. There is a heavier presence of the Parliamentary Protective Service.
All right, I got some opinions here to reference, but let me grab some of these chats first. Creative Space says, in other news, did you see Kyle Klinsky's Valentine's Day post? Happy for him. P.S. Love your show. Yes, I did. I'm very happy for Joe and Mika. I'm joking, of course. Just two politicos together hosting a show together, just like Joe and Mika. Pookie in New Jack City says, first time tuning for live show. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Mr. Saxo Keat says, do you have a concrete position on whether freezing bank accounts good/bad discourse? The Vosh community has been tackling it and it's been messy. So I'll get to some of that in a bit. I am I'm cautiously in support, and cautiously in support of invoking the Emergencies Act. It's important to be clear. It operates within the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It already exists. It's not new powers. These have been in the books forever. Yes, it's the first time they're being invoked, at least as they currently stand. It used to be the War Powers Act. Now it's the Emergencies Act, which has more limitations on it than the War Powers Act did. But it already exists, operates within the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It has to be voted on by Parliament. Like, if it can be easily revoked if it's not supported. It also, within 30 days, it expires regardless of what happens. And they plan, we're going to see, but they plan to revoke it even before the 30 days is up. And I think within 60 days, there has to be an inquiry into how it was used, and detailing, whether or not it should have been used, and all that. So that there is basically a post-mortem after all this to go into its use. So it's not like and it's only being used in very specific geographical locations. And really, I only think it's being used in Ottawa. It may be being used in other border crossings, but I think most of them have been cleared at this point. So I think it's really only being used in Ottawa. But so there's a lot of checks and balances on those powers. Now, the argument that people have used is, well, this sets a bad precedent. If they're going to do this to these occupiers, what if they do them to Black Lives Matter or Indigenous protesters? And my answer to that is, well, they have done much worse in terms of actual physical violence against those sorts of groups. You will never I would be amazed to see the exact same situation, an Indigenous occupying force in Ottawa for 3 weeks. The idea that could happen for 3 weeks before anything is really done is just, I can't even imagine that scenario. So there is no, the state is going to crush the left regardless of what happens, of what they do to the right, regardless. This is a very rare case where you have them actually coming down hard on people that are not opposing capitalism. In fact, they are trying to open these restaurants back up and have no rules, no regulations at all. That's the aim of many of the people that have joined this, is they want to get rid of all public health measures and open up these companies. So this is not, the idea that somehow this sets a precedent is so completely bizarre to me. You have to know absolutely nothing about the history of how Canada has treated protests in the past. I mean, countless examples of this. It's hilarious. I saw one American reporter on my timeline who I'm not sure what her political leaning is, but she made some claim about how, oh my God, Canada is arresting dissidents, peaceful dissidents. This is unbelievable. How can they possibly be doing this? This shit happens all the freaking time to Indigenous protesters. All the time. Of course, that same American reporter never once in their life tweeted about Indigenous protesters. I looked it up. Never once in their life mentioned anything about this. This is just one example. This happened late last year. They have no idea. So you can't claim that, I can't believe Canada's arresting dissidents. How about this? It's so bizarre to me to act like this is setting some kind of precedent. Now, when we get to the actual Emergencies Act part of it, yeah, I'm not excited about its use. I'm not enthusiastic about it being invoked. I don't think it shouldn't have had to get to this point. But as I said earlier, I think it got to this point because up till now, law enforcement simply were not enforcing the law. They were not dealing with the lawless aspects of what was going on in this occupied area. So they were not dealing with the constant harassment that people they were facing just walking down the street, wearing a mask. They're getting harassed by people in this convoy. The all night, all day honking that was going on. That if I can find a clip, Like I heard like 30 seconds of it and I was already going crazy. Like imagine the loudest noise, the consistent honking. I think it actually counts as it counts as a type of torture, actually, according to the Geneva Convention. Let me look this up. Yeah, sound torture. So this is essentially what they were doing. I'm just pulling this up here. There we go. So this is what they were doing. All day, all night, honking these freaking horns. Imagine having a family down there. You're afraid to leave your home because you're being harassed. This shit's going on all day, all night. You can't sleep. It's making you go crazy. Like, this shit was going on for 3 weeks. Now, when it comes to the impact on the economy, like, that's a part of really any successful protest. So, you know, I have a hard time caring when it comes to that aspect of it. But in terms of the actual harassment of people in downtown Ottawa that were being faced with this, yeah, what was going on was lawlessness, and it wasn't being dealt with. So this is part of the reason. Also, they found, you know, a weapons cache in Alberta that was part of the blockade there. So that, like, once that happened, I think that the same day is when Trudeau raised the Emergencies Act. Yeah, when he raised the idea of invoking it. So that isn't to say that they should have done it. I'm just saying from their perspective, why I think they did it. There's a challenge by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. They're going to challenge it in court. Like, this is my position on this. If you have a concrete yes or no position on this, I think you're ridiculous. Like, this is a very debatable position. I don't think there is a clear, perfect answer here, because what was happening was not being dealt with. You can say, well, counter protesters can deal with it. Sure, there was a little bit of that going on. I covered that at the beginning of this week. Good. It's good to see some of that out there, but you can't, counter protesters aren't going to tow away giant trucks. Like, there's limitations on what they can do. And so, you know, something had to be done. And it's not clear what the right answer for that was, but this is what they thought up in terms of what they already had on the books. Not making new laws here, already existed, already there, but it's going to be challenged right here. Canadian Civil Liberties Association to sue federal government over Emergencies Act. So according to them, this occupation has not met the qualifications in order to enact it, and we're going to see where this goes. I think, you know, seeing a challenge like this is fine. I have no issue with them challenging this. I think it's important to ensure that what is being done is lawful. But let me bring this up as well. So Nora Loretto, who I have a lot of respect for, great writer, great Canadian writer, wrote this for passage: invoking the Emergencies Act is a dangerous mistake. I think she makes some good points here. The best point is that it should have been, if they're going to invoke it for this, then they should have invoked it already for the actual pandemic. Because if they did that, if I can find her paragraph on that, then we could have had a lot more support. Here we go. So these two paragraphs is how it could have been used. I think this is it. Yes. So as we curbed our activities, governments did the absolute bare minimum to support us. The federal government could have invoked the Emergencies Act to create more hospitals, harmonize vaccine mandate protocols, or to collect better COVID-19 data so we could actually understand what was happening. It could have invoked the legislation when Alberta was running out of oxygen, when Ontario and Quebec were storing bodies in cold storage facilities, or when long-term care facilities looked like war zones. They also could have sent us support when we needed to isolate, provided more paid time off work, and distributed free rapid tests. They could have helped us navigate this terribly difficult time with more mental health services. Instead, They told us that the power to stop this pandemic was in our hands or could be injected into our arms, and that once we got vaccinated, it would be all over. This promise was a lie when it first started being made in November 2020, and it remains a lie today. Canada's high vaccination rate is something that we should be proud of, and it has stopped tens of thousands more Canadians from dying, but it was never going to be enough to end the pandemic. So basically, her argument here is, if the pandemic was not enough to invoke the Emergencies Act, then why is this, occupation for a few weeks in Ottawa, why is that worth invoking it? And I think that's a great point. That said, both cases, maybe both cases, it needs to be invoked. But again, this is a great piece. I don't agree with all of it, but she makes great points here. I think it's important to be cautious of power like this. I think it's important to question it. But also to be fair, again, I think she's a great writer, but there's no solution here. What is the solution to the people that are there? What is the solution to dealing with the occupiers that will not leave? So that's the problem. Like there's no good answer there. There's no good answer there. So when law enforcement is not doing their job, what power do you have as government to deal with this? And I think once it got to the third week, that's what this government was facing. What do they do with this when it is not already being dealt with the way they normally see, protests get dealt with when it's any other, kind of person. But when it's, right-wing lunatics, they're dealt with, or it takes 3 weeks and they still aren't dealt with until more powers come in to deal with them. So, and worth pointing this out as well on the precedent argument, which I already discussed how stupid that is, but Lee Carter puts it in a much succinct and better way than I could. One of history's biggest lessons for the left, the capitalist state doesn't suppress fascists often. So when it happens, effing let it happen. Don't jump in on the side of the fascists. The first Hitler, then our turn shit has never worked. He goes on to say here, quote, but if they can do it to them, they can do it to us. They're always going to do it to us, whether they can do it to fascists or not. Just be grateful to get a break from it for a minute. There's no argument against this. He's exactly right. They're going to do it, and they already have done it many times before. So this is not, the idea. This is what I think frustrates me in all of this, is that there is very little coverage when in the mainstream press. There is no 24/7 coverage like you're seeing right now when this is going on. None. Like there's an article here or there, some images, one or two journalists are going to be at the site, but there isn't like this kind of coverage. There is no American coverage, no worldwide coverage. Yet when it's right-wing lunatics doing their protest, it gets all the coverage in the world, making it seem like this major human rights issue when this is consistently ignored. So and then it makes it seem like, well, if they're going to shut this down, what if they do it to the left? They've done it so many freaking times, but because it's not covered, it doesn't have worldwide coverage the way this is getting, people do not realize how common this is, and much worse, how common that is on when it comes to land defenders, and just the difference in the amount of coverage this has gotten versus the on and on. And I've covered many, if not all of them, since I started this channel, of these protesters getting arrested at these pipelines. Covered all of that. But this gets all the coverage from everybody. It's so bizarre.
One street over from what's happening here as well. So, David, tell me what's happening around you at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Can explain this. This is something that I have not yet seen. So, Sûreté de Québec, these are the Quebec provincial police who have been brought into this area. You see that they're in their riot gear. There are officers inside. If you sort of peer through the crowd, you may be able to see some of them are in their gas masks. They have the equipment necessary to be able to deploy things like tear gas. You look up the building in the background, you actually see these are people who are keeping optics, watching over the crowd. They are on all the rooftops around here. An RCMP
Thought that was a sniper for a second. It's like, all right, that's a little far. Let me read some of these chats. So anyone else? This is from the Power Goats. Anyone else trapped in their homes in downtown Ottawa? I need a drink, and it's only 2 p.m. Mr. Saxo Keat says, not to be a debate bro via Super Chat, but wouldn't you agree this is a step in a bad direction, though, to quell the disruption of economic activities? Well, it depends what you think it's for, right? The border is open now. So like this is in Ottawa. This is not impacting, trucks crossing the border. This is no impact on that anymore. This is really just about the citizens living there and then being constantly harassed about every single day by these crazy people. So as I said, I'm very cautious. I don't like seeing these kinds of powers invoked if they don't need to be. And the question is, did they need to be invoked here? And there's going to be an inquiry. There's going to be a debate about it. Again, Parliament has to actually support it. Like, it's not just the Prime Minister coming in and saying, I'm doing this and none of you can say anything. No, there's checks and balances on this power. So it's, the power's there. It's not a new law. It exists. It's there. What do you do with these people when they will not stop harassing individuals living downtown? That's ultimately the question here. So unless you have a better solution, that's the debate. Reagan Wolfbane says, I think they only acted when the U.S. demanded Canada did something because it was threatening trade. Matter more than anything. Well, as I said, the border's open, so I don't know. I don't think that's the issue. Also from Wolfbane, Crystal Ball's monologue on this protest is an interesting take, showing the last most successful working class protest was Occupy Wall Street, not this. All right, well, I haven't seen her thing, but yeah, this isn't, again, to be clear, this is not working class at all. As I referenced many times before, the trucker convoy is not a workers' revolt. This has a lot of information, a lot of data in here explaining what this is actually about. So I reference you to that apart from what I've already detailed. Rhino Wiki says, do you see Canada including those who donated small amounts by crowdfunding in bank freezes? What's the scope there? So it's not, I don't think so. The last answer I heard on that is that it's up to law enforcement, which is not an answer I like to hear. So we're going to have to wait and see. But I tend to think they're really only going to focus on people that maybe like massive, if they are to focus on any of those who donated, it's more about massive donations as opposed to anything else. But I think ultimately it's more about freezing the funds from getting to the organizers. That's ultimately what I think that is going to be more focused on. But I think we're going to see more about that, more reporting on that as it comes. Lawn Gnome says, I like the new layout. Random question. When you're thinking of measurements, do you jump to US or metric first? I know some people who will do feet/inches for height, but kilometers for distance, etc. Good question. That's what I do. So when it comes to height, like the idea that I know my height in centimeters is no, I don't. But feet, inches, I do. But when it comes to, distance, kilometers. So it kind of depends. But I really only think I only use, feet/inches. Everything else pretty much is metric for me. And I guess weight as well. Valtteri says, Finland had no trucks, but at least they had saunas. I didn't know. Is Finland doing this too? I feel like I haven't watched anything else except for this crap this week. Like, has anything else even gone on this week? Anything else happen? Last super chat here. I'll turn the audio back on. Kip Winter says, lunch on me. Keep up the great job. Well, thank you, Kip. I just had I had my lunch though. It was an egg burrito. Made it at home. It's pretty good. But here you go.
In behind them. And just moments earlier, they towed away a trailer that was actually blocking Sussex. And before they towed it away, ERT had actually gone in and extracted someone from inside there and arrested them. And as they emerged, the person shouted freedom as they were handcuffed and taken away. But it looks like police have established a pretty wide perimeter here in the downtown core, getting deeper into the market. Andrew?
Jorge, how would you describe the interaction between some of the protesters and those police officers?
Well, it's been the usual, telling these officers that they're the ones who are in the wrong, that they're here just with love, that they're here for their children, that they're the ones who are on the right side of history. The emotions, they come and go. There was a lot more a boisterous reaction to the police a little earlier when they started to move down, and but now people are a little calmer. There's just a handful of people here now. The police have basically created a cordon around the area where the semis had set up at Sussex and Rideau. That area has been cleared. They've cleared the area to down east down Rideau. That has all been secured, and this cordon is expanding. It's unclear what's going to happen with the semis in the back. There was some confusion as to whether these truckers would be allowed to drive away. There was talk that they couldn't find some drivers because they were caught in on the other side of the protest.
So far, very peaceful. No tear gas. I guess I saw some cops in riot gear, but they don't appear to be using it. So, very peaceful approach here. I just want to share this great tweet right here from Beth Lynch. No right-winger will ever or has ever expressed an ounce of concern or outrage when the left's rights are violated. You don't need to help them in their cause because, quote, one day they will do this to the left. Babykins, they've been doing this shit to the left since forever, and the right rejoices every single time.
Have pretty much neutralized this part of the Freedom Convoy protest for now. Andrew?
And Hannah, I know you're watching this along with me, and you know this area well, and how would you describe this area? And Jorge, we appreciate your camera work. This shot is really, as you say, Hannah, really quite something. And there has been significant movement, right, Jorge? And Hannah, feel free to jump in.
Bo Einstein says, truckers blocked me getting my treatment in Vic, BC.
Blocks. I had thought originally that they were going to continue down Wellington Street to eventually land in front of the Parliament buildings, but this is an offshoot street. This is a street that heads into the Byward Market. Again, I just want to listen in for a second there.
Yeah. Everyone says they're just doing their job. Where have we heard that before? Where have we heard that before? We're just doing our jobs.
You hear some protesters getting frustrated with the police officers who are keeping the lines.
Constantly comparing yourself to the fucking Holocaust is not a good look. It's just so fucking stupid. We're talking about basic health measures in a pandemic. Basic ass pandemic health measures. That woman, guarantee you, has at least one vaccine of some other kind. Why was that not encroaching on your freedom? Just so the brainwashing has been clear and just completely insane.
You're just listening, it all of a sudden got got very, very quiet down there. And that's one of the things I noticed, Andrew, when I was walking down to the protest. Before you get to these areas, it's just like a scary silence in the downtown core. Nothing like I've heard or not heard.
Bob Whitmer says, first of all, thanks for your very generous donation. Says, thanks for your coverage on this. It's been much needed sanity in a sea of online nonsense. What's your thoughts on the class action lawsuit against the organizers? Is that the one from the residents in Ottawa? So I haven't read too much into this. My understanding, though, is that if it's the class action lawsuit I'm thinking about, it's actually potentially terrible. And it could potentially, if it's successful, basically outlaw protest. So again, if that's what I'm thinking of, I need to do more reading about this class action lawsuit. But if anything is a potential threat to freedoms during this event, it's that class action lawsuit. But I'm going to have to read more on that. But that's my brief understanding, assuming I'm getting the details on that correct.
Get out of the downtown core. You risk being arrested. These people simply aren't listening. It's like they're watching to see what will happen. Again, you're watching CBC News Network. We continue to track the breaking news out of Ottawa, the police operation to end the protest that has been paralyzing the nation's capital for 22 days. This operation began early this morning with police starting on the outer perimeter, now moving into the place where a lot of the trucks have been for the past 3 weeks.
Just on the health mandates part, this is very true. And now we're potentially seeing a new variant. I know I saw a report out of Japan that there's potentially another variant that is as contagious as Omicron, but as deadly as Delta. But this tweet here, make no mistake, choosing to live with COVID and removing all public health measures is just another way of saying, quote, we are ready to receive the next variant and to kill more vulnerable people.
Trucks out before they move to the next section?
I think exactly. I'm not familiar with the lay of the land there, but I would think that if they're moving down a side street, they want to clear that area before they move into where the large trucks are in front of the Parliament buildings. So all these egresses, this route in and out, those routes need to be cleared of protesters before the big rigs start to move. You know, I saw about 20 minutes ago at least 4 or 5 large rigs leaving in front of the Parliament building, and this is exactly what police really wanted it to happen, is to have these vehicles moved as quickly and easily as possible without towing. If it resorts to towing, that will happen, but that will take a long, long period of time if they have to do that.
Now, I'm not sure if you're able to see the shot we have up now. This is a shot, I don't know if they're digging out the truck. It seems to be that they're digging out the truck. And maybe the message is finally clear. You get out of there or you will face arrest.
My God, where did they get all these snow shovels from?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
City workers are very happy that this is happening, I'm sure. No, they're digging this black truck out of a snowbank, and so it can be extricated and hopefully moved on. I'm hoping that more and more of these.
Okay, just quickly here on the organizers, since there's some confusion here, or not here, but generally confusion about this somehow being organized by truckers when no, it's not organized by truckers. I think maybe one of them is a trucker, but here are the organizers. So this is posted by the Serfs, and my understanding is I think at least 2 or 3 of them have already been arrested. So no, Pat King, Tamara Litch have both been arrested. I'm not sure about the other 3. All right, James Bowder I think also has. But so here we go. So we got QAnon people here. Benjamin here claims the Liberal Party is infested with Islamists. Jason LaFace, linked to racist soldiers of Odin. Tamara Lynch, Alberta separatist, member of Yellow Vests, which, by the way, is not the same as the French Yellow Vests. The Yellow Vests in Canada is a racist movement. It's not a working class movement. And Racist Clarion Project. And Pat King, Alberta separatist who warns of Anglo-Saxon replacement. Yeah, so there's your organizers. About working class truckers, right? That's what you were told? Bullshit. Not about working class truckers, as I've said a million times now during this stream. If you're coming in here late, you're missing a lot of information. But not about working class truckers. It's not. They don't raise any of the actual issues facing working class truckers. Riaz Guerrera says, in a more thoughtful world, we would have citizens protesting the poor pandemic preparation of their respective governments instead of protesting life-saving mandates. Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the reason why I think we have not seen that is because people really do not expect much out of their government, at least not in North America. So the little help that we have received has seemed like a big deal because we're used to getting very little. But I agree with you. In any rational world, there would be protests against the lack of help from our government during this pandemic. And I went through some of the details earlier, quoting Nora Loretto's piece here about how the emergency powers could have been used to actually save lives in this pandemic. And again, if you want to read this piece as well, by the way, just generally, as I referenced them twice here, Passage, a great, fantastic Canadian, if you're a Canadian especially, read passage.com, bookmark this, check them out on a daily basis. Fantastic pieces. Even though if I don't always completely agree with all of them, they're still well-informed perspectives and really great work here from the people at Passage.
That is why the Emergencies Act was implemented. Among some of the authorities that it does have is you can't bring children under the age of 18 to participate in trucker convoy protests, traveling to or from a protest site with the intention of taking part. There you go. That's exactly it there. Or offering support like supplying fuel. Those are a couple of parts of the Emergencies Act that are now in effect, and maybe they simply don't realize that they are now taking part in an illegal protest.
I can't believe that they don't realize it. Enough warning has been given. You understand that quite clearly. I understand it quite clearly. They understand it too. But their beliefs, I think, are misguided, and they don't realize that the police are here to move them out, and that's exactly what's going to happen now.
I think one of the things you were mentioning, Mr. Faulkner, which is fascinating too, and I watched it happening this morning on the ground, is yes, these people are still continuing to come there, but the police are continuing to say, step back, go away. They are giving them the option to leave. It's not their intention and hope that they have to arrest these people.
Which, by the way, again, the difference in approach here, when it's these people compared to any actual working class protest is just incredible. But I'm going to reference here some polling on Canadians' feelings about this trucker protest, because again, a lot of misinformation about there about, oh, the people are in support of this. It's a working class uprising. All the people, yep, the Canadians are really in support of this. Nope, no, we are not. And I'm going to reference some data here. Just a couple of polls. There's every poll shows the exact same thing. But let me reference a couple, starting with Abacus data. Tabs here getting crazy. Let me chop down some of these tabs. Yeah, keep that one up. Keep that one up. Keep that one up. Okay, I'll do this later. All right. Large majority so this is from the 8th. I'll have more updated data in a second here, but large majority in Ottawa oppose Freedom Convoy and think their point has been made and it's time to leave. So here you go. Let's go to some of the more interesting questions. Support/opposition to Freedom Convoy. So again, to be clear, these are people in Ottawa, so they're being directly impacted by this, but I'll show you general opinions in a second as well. But support/opposition to Freedom Convoy, strongly oppose. Even looking at the parties here, Conservative Party voters, 64% strongly oppose, 64%, or strongly oppose or oppose. So you got oppose 20%, strongly oppose 47. So yeah, regardless of party here, people are opposed, regardless of age, regardless of anything. Do you think protesters have had an opportunity to make their point and should now leave town? 87% say yes. Again, of all parties, all demographics. This I care less about. Here we go. Do you support the demonstrators' calls to end all public health measures and restrictions related to COVID-19? So again, the people that do think this is simply about health measures and not about funneling attention and money to a far right-wing movement, just on the health measures alone, oppose, strongly oppose. So people oppose removing the restrictions. They want to keep the restrictions. Again, massive majorities here, regardless of party, even conservatives. 66% do not want health restrictions to be removed. So that's Abacus. Let's go now to Angus Reid. This one is from the 14th. Losing my voice already. Blockade backlash. 3 in 4 Canadians tell convoy protesters, go home now. I'm just going to check quickly to see if anything's happening here. Okay, we'll get to that poll in a second. Let's see some kneelers here praying on the ground.
And there was a great deal of shoving and pushing. I will suggest that probably there was more than shoving and pushing, that the police were actually being assaulted themselves by people. And so there will be arrest teams behind the front line that their mandate is to be handled, the person arrested at the front, and then handcuffed and taken back. And so if you are resisting by pushing against a police officer, which in technicalities is an assault, you will be arrested. So these people on their knees, they will be arrested if in fact the line moves forward, because you can't just leave people there, and that blocks the line from moving forward. So without a question, being on your knees does not prevent you from being arrested.
Murray, appreciate this. Thank you. That is Murray Faulkner.
I just want to reiterate, like, the ones that have been fooled into this, brainwashed into thinking this is about freedoms, this is about, you got to stand up for freedoms, we can't be China, that kind of bullshit. I just feel bad for those people. I don't feel bad for the organizers that I think know what they're doing, and are, again, have a very terrible history. But when it comes to the brainwashed individuals in this, we have to find a way to properly deal with these people and ensure they don't fall in or don't continue going deeper down a hole. Because what is the end to this, right? Like when you have, this isn't, again, when we're looking at support for this kind of thing, it's very low. But there's still a significant percentage of people that are against health measures, that are against this vaccine, that they have just been taken in by complete bullshit. They've been brainwashed. How do we deal with that as a society? I think that's a fair question we should be asking ourselves, instead of just looking at these people as like completely, like they should be beaten and arrested and taken away. No, we should realize this is a problem. This is a societal problem, and we have to understand what is going on here, what's at play, and find a way to properly deal with it. And again, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know how to prevent people from falling into a, far right lunacy hole of conspiracies. But we have to be willing to have that conversation. Now, this poll, Angus Reid. Let's go over some data in this one. This is from the 14th, so just 4 days ago. What do you think the protesters should do? 72% say go home now. They've made their point. 22% say stay in Ottawa and other protest sites until their demands are met. And 6% say not sure. So again, large majority here want to see them go home. Same question, but broken down by party. Again, a majority of Conservatives are saying go home now. So, of course, we see that with the Liberals, with the NDP, with the Bloc Québécois, but even Conservative Party voters, majority, saying they should go home. Overall, have these protests made you any more likely to support or oppose any of the following? Wearing a mask in public indoor spaces. So 44% say more likely to support wearing a mask in indoor spaces. 21% saying more likely to oppose. So again, showing you it hasn't helped. In fact, if I'm reading this correctly, it has made the situation worse for these people protesting the health measures. So, yeah. Vaccine requirements to travel internationally / cross the border with the U.S. More likely to support, 44%, whereas 24% say more likely to oppose, and 32% say neither. They've had no real effect on your opinion about this. And that's where I fall, by the way. This protest has not changed my mind, either way. This is by province. Okay, what else here? Overall, given what you know about these protests, would you say support or oppose the protesters' demands to end all pandemic restrictions? 47% strongly oppose the demand to end all pandemic restrictions. The protesters, and by the way, 17% oppose. So strongly oppose and oppose. We're looking at a big majority there. The protesters themselves, their approach and behavior. 56% strongly oppose these protesters' approach and behavior, with 14% added on to that in the oppose category. Anything else worth looking at here? This I care less about. Which is closer to your point of view? The right to protest outweighs economic disruption. That's 39%. Protect economic interests, even if it limits protest, 61%. I actually don't like this. This is not good. Any successful protest, regardless of what it's for, will have an impact on the economy. My concern about the people in Ottawa, my concern about this protest is the people in Ottawa. The families there being impacted, the all day, all night honking, the constant harassment that people that live there and work there are facing. That's my concern. Economic disruption, of course, I don't support it in this case because I don't support what they're fighting for. But just generally, economic disruption is going to happen in a successful protest. So, but you see here, this is how people feel generally. Most still, they want their lives to be, normal. They don't want disruption. And actually, it's worth noting here, the NDP and the Conservatives exactly the same. Because I think also NDP voters understand the need to protest. Obviously for much different reasons, but, compared to Conservatives, but still, you see here that interesting agreement on this issue. And this is by age. Let's see here. So it's not surprising to see 55 plus, regardless of male or female, think that protecting economic interests are more important than limiting protests. Or I should say, should even limit protests if it's protecting economic interests. Whereas you go younger, much different case. So, yeah. Which I will say, this is good to see that younger generations are aware of the need to protest and that right as opposed to putting economic interests ahead of that. So, we aren't in power right now, the 18 to 34-year-olds, but one day we will be. I'm saying this as somebody who's just outside of that, but I'm part of that group. So we will, it'll be maybe a decade or two, but we will take power. All right, there you go.
Police operation is underway against this occupation in Ottawa. It's been 22.
Again, I will take super chat. What the hell?
Where?
There we go. I will take super chats. I'll also grab random chats if anything stands out, and I will continue seeing what else I can share on this issue. Actually, I should recommend, since I recommended this a million times now, check out Left Turn Canada. This is a great podcast. This episode especially, where they discuss Trudeau invoking the Emergencies Act and whether or not he should do it. A very objective analysis here of the pros, the potential cons, all of that. So well worth a listen. Just look up Left Turn Canada. I'm sure you'll find it. And so if you want, a deeper dive on that specific issue and you want to inform yourself, great piece of information here.
But they do seem to be pushing forward. There we go. We can see some of the protesters. And then to the right of those protesters, down the road, is the American Embassy. So that's where that street goes. It goes, and great work by Jorge. I think he's hearing what we're saying there. Down the street to the left is the American Embassy. You can see that there are barricades blocking the road to the left there, but there is an entryway. They will want to get some of those trucks out of the downtown core, and it looks like...
Carter Gall says, wait, do you think the Hogs are... the Hogs... Do you think the Hogs are right to protest the mandate? No, I don't. But the right to protest is important, is more important than the impact on the economy. That's what I'm saying. So you can both acknowledge that the right to protest outweighs the impact on the economy, because any successful protest will have an impact on the economy. And those protests are often fighting for things like civil rights, human rights, wages, healthcare, like important things that we as a society need, and have only gotten them because of similar protests. That said, also be able to acknowledge this protest, the basis for this protest is ridiculous. A lot of it is just based in bigotry, racism, hatred, and people fooled into it think it's about freedom and health, health measures. So acknowledge that is ridiculous, a ridiculous thing to protest. But also acknowledge that generally protesting is more important than the impact on the economy. And that's what this poll was about that I just discussed. Where's the initial one? I just want to show it. This one, yeah. So yeah, it appears most Canadians don't agree. Maybe part of that is because of what's been going on with this particular protest, and that has soured them on protest in general. But I think here most Canadians are wrong. Any successful protest will have an impact on the economy. That said, this protest is stupid. So we have to be able to hold, multiple thoughts in our head at the same time. It's not that tough to do if you think about it.
Don't want to, may not want to be here, or may fear some sort of retribution, and so they're covering up their names. This also a large police staging area, so we have just adjacent to us the University of Ottawa. Can't see it where we're at, but there's in behind some of those buildings is where a lot of police vehicles have been staging for the last couple of days. We know Vancouver Police, we just saw Toronto's mounted unit, RCMP, OPP, Durham. It is a long list now. We were out with the Sûreté de Québec earlier, some of them wearing gas masks. But you get the sense, here, that they are ready to tow. They have what they need to do it. It's just a question of clearing protesters.
Raw Material ENT says the protesters don't have working class demands and have co-opted truckers as an avatar. The reality that the organizers are neo-Nazis or the reality is that the organizers are neo-Nazis and that they are demanding to unseat an elected PM, not freedom. You are correct, and I agree.
So that is one of the things that they had issues with. I'm right in saying that, right, David?
Yeah, quite right in saying that they must be compensated, as you rightly note. However, there is an obligation under the Emergency Act that they don't really have a choice. They have to do it. And so when you look at all those heavy tow trucks, they haven't moved in the time that we've been here, but very clearly are ready to be moved. You see down here, that gives you an idea of all the officers that are here. Those are our...
Oh, man. Rob should have been here earlier. Rob asks, so I'm from the UK. Tell me what the basis from the protest is. I assume you're trying to say what the basis for the protest is. Where do I begin? Okay. If you're just coming into this now, let's give you a little quick summary on what is going on. Right now, you have, after 3 weeks of these occupiers in downtown Ottawa harassing people that live there, honking their horns all day, all night, in here, getting at least some of them getting arrested if they were refusing to leave. So far, it's been a peaceful arresting. It has not been tear gas and riot gear. So that's what's currently happening. They're getting arrested. Now, what are these protesters, or I should say occupiers? Why are they there? It depends on who you ask. So some of them, let's start with the organizers. The organizers, these are the organizers. You have someone that shares QAnon crap, someone that claims the Liberal Party, who I do not support, by the way. I'm not a Liberal Party voter, but this person claims the party is infested with Islamists, which is stupid and ridiculous and bigoted, obviously. Jason LaFace says, linked to racist Soldiers of Odin, so that is a far right-wing group in Canada. Tamar Lynch, Alberta separatist, member of Yellow Vest. Yellow Vest in Canada is a racist group. It's not a pro-worker group the way it is in France. Yellow Vest and racist Clarion Project. And Pat King, Alberta separatist, who warns of Anglo-Saxon replacement. More racism. So these are the organizers. There may be one trucker here. I forget which one it is, but they're not truckers. This is not a working class trucker protest. They are not raising issues of wage theft that working class truckers face. They are not raising issues of being misclassified as contractors as opposed to being employees. That way their boss skirts regulators and treats them poorly, and they have other issues that deal with that in terms of lack of safety regulations and that kind of thing when they are contractors. So none of these issues are being raised in this so-called, by some people, working class trucker convoy, because it is not about a working class trucker convoy. That's not what it is. It is largely a way to funnel brainwashed individuals about, they have conspiracies about the vaccine, about masks, about mandates, funnel them into this far right-wing movement. That's what they have tried to do. That's what the People's Party of Canada tried to do during the election last year. That's what this movement is currently trying to do. And so if you ask people that are there, a lot of these people that are a part of this, that are not the organizers, think this is simply about freedom, about ending the mandates. We want to be able to go to restaurants without having, a vaccine. We want to be able to, work at a hospital or school without being vaccinated. So there are limited vaccine mandates in Canada. If you work at a school, if you work at a hospital, if you're trying to cross the border as a trucker, there's mandates. 90% of truckers are vaccinated. The vast majority of truckers are not in this. There's roughly, I think, 230,000 truckers in Canada. There's maybe, a couple dozen trucks downtown here. So we're talking about a tiny, tiny minority of people. A lot of the truckers that are there are the bosses of other actual working class truckers. These are the capitalists that are down there. I shared earlier, this piece from Passage, this trucker convoy is not a workers' revolt. I will link to this, or I linked to it earlier, but I'll link to it now in the chat in case you missed it earlier. If you want to read that, share that around. That gives you a great breakdown of who's actually in this convoy, what it's about. Again, it's not about the working class truckers. This writer here, Adam D.K. King, has done a lot of research well before this about issues facing working class truckers, and none of that is being addressed with this convoy. So it's largely been the people that have joined it. We're talking about the brainwashed Facebook people. So, you know, there's a microchip in the vaccine, or they're trying to control our lives, or, you know, our freedoms are being taken away. We're China now. Like, all that bullshit is part of this. You see a lot of F Trudeau signs. The organizers have called to remove Justin Trudeau, remove his government. Somehow that's a health measure. So again, not about health measures. So funneling these people into a far right message, be like, hey, you're against the mask mandate, you're against these vaccines. Well, let's get rid of Trudeau. So that's the attempt here, to try and funnel these people into this more far right, completely brainless message. And people that have joined this are ripe for that, because they've already been fooled by the shit they've read online on Facebook about vaccines, about masks, about COVID-19. So that is why they prey on individuals like this, because these are the people that are easy to convince. So hopefully that's kind of a good breakdown on the entire situation. We got a super chat here. Thank you for your generous super chat, Eric. Eric Dioit says, wouldn't a good compromise be vax or test? If the convoy rejects it, then wouldn't they look unreasonable? So my understanding is that at one point that was the case. I have to look into this again, because I don't even think this is necessarily about the truckers per se, as it is about needing to be vaccinated across the border, or have a PCR test. So because rapid tests are not as reliable, you can't simply rely on a rapid test. Like, they're just not reliable. The other tests, of course, can take a week or more. So that's the issue there with the vax or test aspect of it. Is rapid testing simply is not reliable enough. But man, there's been so much about this that I forget, like, the whole basis for this goddamn thing, or I should say the fake basis for it, in terms of the actual policy that so it came into effect on the 14th, I know that, of last month. Let me get the actual statement here. While I do that, let's just play this.
And see a large number of protesters in that crowd.
Yes, I mean, it's always a very unscientific estimate, because there's so many different locations in the city of Ottawa where protesters are, and often they're coming and going from staging areas to the downtown core, from hotels to the protests and so on. At different times of day, you see different numbers of people. But my impression today is that there are not as many as there were before. The numbers have diminished, but they haven't diminished that significantly. So a small number seem to have decided that they'd gone far enough with this protest, but it doesn't seem to be more than a minority. A lot of people in this protest convinced themselves, or were convinced by leaders, because we've heard this over and over again, that at the end of the day they won't be arrested, and even that the police will at the last moment come over to their side, that police will refuse orders.
Talk about white privilege. Holy shit. My God, to be there and be that confident in not getting arrested because you never have seen you face any kind of actual law enforcement has never actually come down to you before. Just incredible. All right, here you go. So this is the actual from Canada.ca, which oddly enough used to be a media website. And Canada, I guess, took it back. But here you go. So that's an aside. That doesn't matter at all. But so on November 19th, we announced that as of January 15th, certain categories of travelers who are currently exempt from entry requirements will only be allowed to enter the country if they are fully vaccinated with one of the vaccines approved for entry into Canada. These groups include several essential service providers, including truck drivers. Let us be clear, this has not changed. The information shared yesterday was provided in error. Our teams have been in touch with industry representatives to ensure they have the correct information. This is also important. A Canadian truck driver who is not fully vaccinated can't be denied entry into Canada. Canadian citizens, persons registered as Indians under the Indian Act, and permanent residents may enter Canada by right. As announced in November, and as we've communicated with the industry recently, starting the 15th, unvaccinated Canadian truck drivers entering Canada will need to meet requirements for pre-entry, arrival and day 8 testing, as well as quarantine requirements. The final decision regarding entry and quarantine is made by a government representative at the port of entry based on the information presented to them at the time. Any individual who is symptomatic upon arrival to Canada will be directed to the Public Health Agency of Canada official and will be directed to isolate for 10 days from the time they enter Canada. As of the 15th again, unvaccinated or partially vaccinated foreign national truck drivers coming to Canada from the U.S. by land will be directed back to the U.S. To qualify as a fully vaccinated traveler and to enter Canada, foreign national truck drivers must have received at least 2 doses of a vaccine accepted for travel, a mix of 2 accepted vaccines, or at least 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson, the Janssen & Johnson. You guys really messed that one up. The Janssen & Johnson. Sorry, is there a Janssen vaccine too? The Janssen/Johnson & Johnson vaccine. I'm lost. Okay. Have received their second dose at least 14 full days before they enter Canada. For example, if a driver received their second dose anytime on Saturday, the January 1st, then Sunday, January 16th would be the first day they would meet the 14-day condition. And they've submitted all required COVID-19 information into Arrive Canada. So this is really about American truck drivers. If you are Canadian, now, not completely. If you are Canadian, a Canadian truck driver, you can, unvaccinated, cross into the border, cross into Canada. But you need, I think, what was it? You need like a test, and you potentially have to isolate. They will need to meet requirements for pre-entry, arrival, and day 8 testing. So they have to test immediately. I assume that's a rapid test. And then day 8 testing, maybe again a rapid test or a what's it called, a PCR test, a proper test. So as well as quarantine requirements. So it may still disrupt their job because they have to quarantine. So even though they can still cross into the border, they still may be impacted by not being vaccinated because they have to quarantine. But so it's really about American truck drivers because you're just turned away. So, which also gets into the American element of this in terms of the fundraising and what's been going on there. And we saw like building a border here. So we saw with the data that was leaked from the second fundraising site that was taking donations for this convoy, that more than half of the number of donations were from Americans. That said, more money was from Canadians. So I think it was like 4.3 million from Canadians compared to like 3.6 million for Americans. But the number of donations was more from Americans than Canadians. But, you know, that part of it is, I don't know, in some ways less, it matters less to me, as it's really about, I guess, the big donations and where those came from. And of course, a lot of that was anonymous at the time. But I know I think there was like the biggest donation to the convoy, again, in the one that was leaked, the second website, was from I think like a tech billionaire in Silicon Valley. I think he gave like 90,000. So, you know, this is not any stories about like, you know, I don't know, Russian influence or all that shit. That's stupid. Like we have enough conspiracy and crazy crap in Canada for us to fund our own crazies. Thank you very much. Like we don't need outside donations to fund this insanity. We have enough of our own. So, yeah, I mean, if anything, it exposed that this really was not, you know, foreign interference. It really was largely, you know, Canadian born, because most of the money came from Canada into this convoy.
At 3 o'clock Eastern Time, as we look at the screen, that is Wellington Street on your right, where you can continue to see vehicles parked there in front of Parliament Hill and some protesters. And then just on the top corner to your left is just to the east of Parliament Hill, where you can see a gathering of protesters, police in that crowd, and other scenes where police have been pushing back, for instance, on Sussex near the Rideau Canal. This is the scene just to the east of Parliament Hill, where you can see a large number of protesters, and there are police in that crowd as well. And the CBC's Hannah Thibodeau is live in Ottawa. She's been reporting on the street. She has been anchoring this special with me this afternoon. I'm Andrew Nichols. And Hannah, you know, this is the scene as we have seen it unfold on this dynamic day. What do you make of what we're seeing?
Yeah, take a look at this shot. This one is quite fascinating. Earlier today, when I walked through that area, that is down by the Rideau Centre, a little bit further up from that, and then close you can see the Senate, which is currently the Senate. There weren't a lot of people around there. It was just a few people, but as police have started to move in, and you can see them, they look like kind of ants in the left-hand corner. We see them moving around in there. As police have started to move in, the crowd there of protesters has grown. It seems like they want to see what's going on. They want to watch what is happening, and maybe potentially be arrested because they are not supposed to be in this location. This is
So, what was I going to say? Any questions about my explanation earlier? I hope I broke down what this protest is about. The organizers, the people that are brainwashed that are there, what they think it's about, what the actual law is on this, as I just broke down. We talked about the Emergencies Act earlier. What else? If you got questions, let me know.
3 weeks into this since last Friday. The downtown core, as Evan is saying, there aren't really everyday people out there. The people out there are protesters, police, and media at this time. And this city has been shut down essentially for 3 weeks in the downtown core. The Rideau Centre hasn't had its doors open because the first weekend of this protest saw people running around in there with masks. They were harassing staff, and the mall had to decide to close. Also along Spark Street, many businesses have shut down because of safety reasons, because of the fact people just weren't coming down into the downtown core to shop. There's a lot of concern from restaurant owners. We had a chance to speak with a couple of those restaurant owners over the past little bit, and they were saying that people aren't coming down. They had booked for maybe 100 tables one weekend, and those tables had all canceled and maybe 10 showed up, even just outside of this perimeter. So businesses have been hurting. The residents of this area are frustrated and fed up, and they want to take back control of their city. And that's what's happening with police today. We are seeing this happen slowly. As we saw a few minutes ago from David Common. David Common was in that original area this morning. I was down there. We saw police make a couple of arrests, a few arrests. I don't know how.
Red says, where is your data that most of the Freedom Convoy people are not working class? Well, first of all, I have to go over all this again. The organizers are not even truckers. So these are the organizers. The actual, no working class trucker can take 3 weeks off. if your boss is going to let you take 3 weeks off work as a trucker, come on now. That doesn't happen. So, but anyways, this goes into all the details, including, yes, the data about the kinds of people that are there, what actual working class truckers are fighting for. There is a great, I have sources. Thank God part of the reason I put sources in the video is so all you can, check my sources yourself. But also it helps me because if there's like a story I did and I reference something and I want to reference it later, I can go and find it. So if I can find I think I have like 4 videos on this. There is a fantastic Twitter thread of pictures from, let's pull this up, of pictures from the trucks that are there, and the fact that these are actually capitalists. These are the bosses, the owners. So of the truck, first, the vast majority of people there aren't truckers at all. We're talking about, again, I think I said 230,000 truckers roughly in Canada. We got like a dozen trucks here. Like, we're talking about tiny sliver of people. But even apart from that, actual working class issues are not being raised in this at all. I gotta find my link. Hold up. As I've said many times, wage theft, which is a major issue for working class truckers, not being brought up at all. No economic issues being brought up. Being misclassified as contractors as opposed to employees, not being brought up at all. Here we go. Here's the thread. So this is a great resource here. Rodney Tory on Twitter goes over image after image after image of all these bosses here. Not a working class Joe, capitalist enterprise. The employees are working class. So that's XLR Transport. And again, on and on and on. On and on and on. And you'll see a lot of pickup trucks here. So they aren't even the ones not driving the trucks. Interesting. But again, on and on and on. And yeah. So anyways, massive this goes on. I don't think I even reached the bottom. Like, it goes on forever. But we're talking about capitalists. That's who is there. And this goes deeper into that. This goes deeper into that. This piece by Adam D.K. King in Passage. And this is somebody who's done a lot of research on the trucking industry well before this happened. So he's well aware of the trucking industry, the issues they face, what's being raised here, what's not being raised here, the kinds of people that are showing up to this and the ones that aren't. So that's a great resource for more information on that. And again, they're not raising actual working class trucking issues at all in this. And not organized by truckers. That should be like the biggest giveaway. If you don't have another big giveaway. Fox News' wall-to-wall coverage of this. When has Fox News ever cared about working class, about a labor action of the working class? Never. They don't care. Of course they don't care. So this is, for them to cover this, should tell you it's not about the working class. It's about funneling people into this right-wing garbage. That's what it's about. Red says George Soros donated $250 million to BLM. Does that delegitimize BLM? First of all, I'm not even sure if that's true. But if that's true, I don't care. Did I even bring up the donations here? Did I bring up that, oh, this is not working class because this person donated? No, I don't care about that. I care about what the organizers are calling for. They're calling to get rid of Justin Trudeau. You don't just get rid of a government with a convoy. Like, they're also calling to get rid of all public health protections. This is not about working class truckers. I don't care about the donations. That's why I didn't go into that part. Like, that doesn't really, to me, that doesn't really say anything, because I don't think it's important. What's important is what the organizers are saying, what the actual protesters are saying, what they are fighting for. They're calling for freedom from health protections during a pandemic. Very normal health protections. Oh, can't wear a mask indoors. Oh my God. I watched David Cross's stand-up last weekend. He has a great bit on all the unvaxxed brainwashing bullshit. Like, I don't want to give away, I can't give away his joke, but there's a joke where he gets into, he reads a list of things, all the things that are as bad or worse than wearing a mask, and it is hilarious. I was crying laughing. But point being, you should watch David Cross's stand-up. It's really good. Fully Insider says, have they reached out to Ja Rule for comment yet? I don't know. I have not seen Ja Rule's take on this. WizPig Tactics says, what time can the cops move in? I want to see if they are using proper technique. I don't know what that means. They've been moving in very slowly over the past 6 hours. So they're being as kind as possible. They're asking nicely. They're saying, yes, please, sorry. So I don't, again, that isn't to disparage this. This is, if you're talking about how police should act, this is how they should act. They should be respectful. They should de-escalate. This is good. But it's important to point out the hypocrisy here that we've seen many times over when it was G20, when it was Indigenous protesters. A very, very different approach than the one they are taking here. But it is just crazy, the difference. The fact that this has gone on for 3 weeks, any other scenario would be it'd be a completely different result. Juice says, your Geraldo video was on point. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It is in the Emergencies Act.
Okay, Noah Mendelson, Aviv in Ottawa. I want to thank you for your time today. She is Executive Director for the Canadian Civil Liberties Association.
And the CBC's David Common joins us now from Rideau Street, just a few hundred meters east of Parliament Hill, where there are a number of police officers in position. So, David, what's happening around you?
MB says your sources just seem to be lefty sources that coincide with your own. Not true at all. I showed this article earlier. I do not agree. I do not agree with this. But I think it's important to read this and read the reasoning. And I think Nora Loretto here makes some great points. Great points. This is a great piece that I disagree with. But it's a great piece. So I reference objective reality. If you want me to reference, Facebook memes about how the vaccine is taking away your freedom somehow, even though you already have like a guarantee, 4 or 5 vaccines already inside of you. If you want to reference bullshit, no, I'm not going to reference bullshit. I'm going to reference objective reality, and I'm going to reference opinions that I think make great points, even if I disagree. So, great points in this piece. Fantastic. And I'm also glad, as I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, if I can find the article at this point, that the Civil Liberties Association is suing the federal government over the Emergencies Act. I'm glad this is happening. I want to see where this goes. I want to ensure that this kind of power doesn't go unchecked. And by the way, there already are protections in place, as I discussed during the stream, in terms of this expires in 30 days, regardless of what happens. Parliament has to actually approve it. So the Liberal Party needs the NDP on board to actually pass this without it being revoked. So there's several checks in place, including this that's happening, that I'm glad is happening, even though I am cautiously in support of the use of the act the way it's currently being used. But that isn't to say I don't it's good. It's important to have this. As I mentioned earlier, I think anyone that has, a clear, concrete position on absolutely what should or should not happen, I don't think it's smart. I think it's, a lot of the people that are against its use don't appear to have a solution for the ongoing harassment and the ongoing, the day and night honking that's going on. They don't have any actual solution for the occupation that's been going on for the past few weeks. There has been some suggestions about, look, a drone, about citizen protest, or I should say counter protesting. And there's been a bit of that, but there's limits on that as well. and you don't want to, like, I don't know, I guess create a civil war scenario where you have these two civilian groups fighting it out. So there's limitations on counter protesting. They can't tow all the trucks out of Ottawa. So what's the solution? I don't have a solution. The Emergencies Act offers a solution. I don't think it's an ideal solution. I prefer a different solution if one exists, but another solution has not been raised. That's the problem. And as I've mentioned a million times, and I'll mention it again, this sets no precedent. That's ideas complete bullshit. You've seen, or at least if you're Canadian, hopefully, and you're a little informed, you have seen the approach law enforcement has taken to land defenders on a regular basis, the violence associated with taking them down, even though they are not harassing people living in a city. They are simply blocking a construction of a pipeline, but they get hit with violence. They get taken down well before, 3 weeks. Like, this has gone on for 3 weeks. So it's a very different approach here. The state will always crush anti-capitalist movements regardless of what has happened, of what they've done to a right-wing protest. They will always crush anti-capitalist movements regardless, or at least attempt to crush them. So why am I going to care if this happens to this brainless, idiotic protest about garbage? That said, I don't cheer it on. I don't cheer on the crushing of this kind of thing, but I don't care. I don't care. Why should I care? It makes no sense to care. I don't support their movement. Why would I care? My support for protests depend on what they're actually fighting for. I support protesting generally. I think if you want to peacefully protest against mandates, that's fine. I don't support you, but you can do that. I don't care. That's fine. If you're going to try and stop a pipeline, I support you. I think that's great. I don't think you should be crushed. So, that's where my values, the idea of having like these blanket principles of like, I just generally support protest regardless of what it's for. Like, what? But isn't there more to that? Like, what do you actually support? What do you actually fight for? Do you support human rights? Or do you think that this country isn't white enough? Like, that's the decisions here. So it's important to be able to lay that out. That it matters what they are fighting for. Like, the idea that it doesn't matter what they're fighting for, to me, that anyone on the left can argue that is so completely bizarre to me. Of course it matters what they're fighting for. If they're fighting against health measures, that's stupid. If they are claiming that your freedom is being stolen because you got to wear a mask sometimes, that is dumb. If they're fighting for higher wages, if they're fighting against a pipeline, that's great. I support that. Like, it matters what they are fighting for. But like, to just have, I don't know, to always come to the defense of far right-wing lunatics, and rarely ever, like, this is what I'm seeing from some people, where they'll come to the defense here and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that they are arresting. In fact, I will name names. This tweet I saw earlier was so dumb. And this is what I've been seeing that really annoys me. That people are just now discovering that protesters get arrested occasionally. Like, it's so completely bizarre. Here we go. This dumb tweet right here. Look at this dumb shit. Canada's now officially arresting dissidents. A country that considers itself a democracy arresting people for the crime of organizing a mass grassroots nonviolent protest should horrify each and every one of you. Surely we can all agree on that, whatever side of this you're on. This person has never seen a protester get arrested before, has never seen all the links here, I have it here somewhere, has never seen what has gone on over and over and over and over again. It'll come up. One second. Here you go. This is just last year, but this happens all the freaking time. Was she out there saying they're arresting dissidents? I can't believe they are arresting these Indigenous protesters? No, of course not. In fact, I searched her timeline. Not one mention of Indigenous, not one mention of blockade, not one mention of pipeline. So to claim that this is somehow new or like setting some new precedent is so stupid, so dumb. But this is what I've been seeing from people who would otherwise consider themselves to be, you know, liberal or left or, I don't know, you know, pro-human rights. Like, it's just so freaking stupid. So it's important to point that out, that this is not new. This law enforcement action in a case like this, a situation like this, is nothing nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, let me show my response to this. I gotta find it. 1 second. Here we go. I feel like my tweets are more well thought out than my on the spot opinions here. But so I replied to this dumbass tweet saying, I assume you were screaming bloody murder every time Indigenous protesters were getting arrested as well, right? You either only care about the issues that far-right loons are fighting for, which is your choice, or you're virtue signaling. Basically pointing out here that if you're so alarmed by this, then you have to have also been alarmed by land defenders getting arrested for their peaceful protest. But she wasn't. So that means she either is in support of what the far right is fighting for, or she is simply virtue signaling in this one area to try and appeal to a right-wing audience. And or she is completely uninformed on what is going on in Canada forever. So like, that's what I'm seeing from a lot of Americans, is just a lot of dumb crap. Dumb crap. Sorry for that cough. Tried to block it, but I don't think I was that successful. My voice is definitely going. I can feel it. Nanana says, I appreciate the stream, David. I have to sleep now. Right. Well, have a good sleep.
And MPs were not there today, and staffers too, was because of this police operation. They're hoping to be back inside the House of Commons debating these issues tomorrow, but they will have to see significant movement over the next number of hours, I would say, in order to be able to guarantee people's safety and just their free mobility, you know, just being able to get to work, which would also prove challenging for anybody that comes downtown.
Yeah, and one of the things as well is that even once they get this area clear, the police are still going to have to ensure that there are no more pop-up protests either, so that, as we heard, I think it was on your show from Bill Blair, no whack-a-mole.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think that the government has, over the course of this week, increasingly leaned on that part of the argument for its use of the Emergencies Act, that the reason it is nationwide but not being enforced in all parts of the country is that if they encounter a space that is a port of entry or that is deemed a critical piece of infrastructure, that they could apply the same measures to that space if needed. I mean, the hope obviously is that this takes the wind out of the sails of protesters. That would be the hope. Whether or not that is the case, given the extremely sophisticated organization that they seem to have had over the past 3 weeks.
Just to compare, take a look at this shot here. Cops just standing there slowly creeping in. Compare that to this. G20. People getting beaten by cops in riot gear. Very different approach. Now, again, it's important, I guess, to have to reiterate this a million times. That doesn't mean I am endorsing this kind of behavior in this scenario. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this kind of nonviolent approach, this sort of de-escalation by the police in this scenario is what should have been applied here. And in fact, they had to admit it later on. Regret that mistakes were made during G20 summit in 2010. So it's a very, very different approach depending on who are the ones doing the protest. Nope, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a turning over a new leaf, and this is how law enforcement will act all the time. When land defenders are out there stopping a pipeline, the next protest like that's similar to like a G20, maybe there'll be this kind of approach. But I tend to think that's not the case.
Not wanting to take responsibility, pointing fingers, looking for blame. I'm sure that there is a lot of blame to go around all levels of government here, but ultimately.
Lawn Gnome says, when are we getting that gaming stream with Horizon? Thank you first of all, thank you for the gaming question. I'm not going to stream Horizon simply because my good television is not in my office, and I want to play Horizon on my good television. So I don't want to play it. Like, my PS5 isn't here, so I'm not going to play it on, a small monitor in my office. It's not going to happen. So yeah, apologies for that. Tomas Mundo, thank you for your donation.
To the country at 3:45 Eastern Time. In the meantime, let's bring in Joe Veloso. He is a law professor and criminologist at the University of Ottawa. Professor Veloso, thank you for taking the time. As we look at these images and we look, at some police lines, where I believe this is the Sûreté du Québec that are very close to this crowd that is gathering. We've had 21 arrests, 21 vehicles towed. What is your reaction to the police action that we've seen today?
I know it sounds a little bit impressive and viewed as something impressive because they're not used to this kind of policing in town. Sûreté du Québec has a completely different police culture. They have a way more European continental doctrine, so we're not used to that here. But when you look as a whole, the operations are pretty much textbook. I think they are, oddly, they are exercising a lot of restraint. So they're not moving in and throwing tear gas to everybody. They're moving slowly, doing one arrest at a time, giving all the opportunity to people to leave. This is not the general approach of anti-riot police, and definitely the presence of the press, the eyes of the world in town, has an impact on that.
Would you say that this is a contrast to other police operations at other protests where it would appear, well, it did happen, that there was a heavier hand used when it came to enforcement?
It is, but this is not a bad thing. I think what they're doing today is, it is almost like a training. It is a textbook operation. They're moving slowly. They're giving all possible notice. They are isolating individuals before doing an arrest. And again, like, this is not usually how it's occur, but as they are in big numbers, they are in a position to do that. What is surprising is that they're still targeting people. So we're not seeing a kind of policing strategy yet that target stuff, trucks, and other things. They're still with this very old school policing approach to a protest that, well, the problem is not trucks, the problem is people. They're still a little bit too stick to this kind of position.
So what happens next? We've been kind of in this holding pattern, I guess, if you will, over the last several hours, and we're seeing police and protesters nearby, by our estimation, maybe a couple of hundred protesters or so near Parliament Hill, just east of Parliament Hill. What happens next? They've been told it's an illegal protest.
Montreal police use pepper spray, tear gas at George Floyd protest after they say projectiles thrown. Yeah. Very, very different approach And of course, they always say after the fact, oh, yeah, someone threw a plastic bottle, so we had to pepper spray. But he's pointing out here, he's right to point out that
I think their strategy is
that this is the correct approach, but it's been a very, like, he even seems surprised at how different the approach is because he has not seen this kind of restraint from police in Quebec. So even he's impressed by this.
They're not using that yet. They are quite calm and civil in a way.
And this is, so that was the scene we were looking at where camera is pulled out. That's the Chateau Laurier. And of course, to the left of your screen is Parliament Hill, where those police officers and a number of protests, but we do see the trucks that are still in front of Parliament Hill. On that, as we've, police figure out how to deal with the protesters that remain, there are also the many vehicles that remain. How do you expect that to be dealt with by police in the hours ahead?
I don't think we're talking about hours ahead. I'm doing field work on this protest since the beginning, pretty much. And the way the trucks were parked on Wellington in the last 3 days after the deal with the mayor, it's really quite tied together and it's not easy to remove.
The Humanist says, Ottawa native, I do not know a single person who wants the truckers to stay. Weekend 1, there was some sympathy. Now, none. Child shields equal bad luck. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. The Ottawa police were reporting that protesters put children between police operations and the unlawful protest site. That said, I haven't seen video of this. Police claim things, sometimes it's not true. So I don't know if this is definitely true, but I did see a family walk out. I showed this earlier. Walk out of, here it is. Here they are. Walk out of the protest after what appears to be maybe their uncle or dad was arrested here. Really freaking despicable to have your kids here. But so, yeah, if that's what they were doing, absolutely disgusting.
And vans and SUVs all around the compound just to make sure that nobody comes in. Behind here, you'll see across the Rideau Canal, there's the Chateau Laurier, which of course, there's the Chateau, the famous sort of Disney castle looking hotel of Ottawa. And on the other side of the street there, you can see the old Ottawa Railroad Station, which has those Greek columns on it, now acting as the Senate, while the Senate is...
It's a great point by Reyes Guerrera, the person who brought up Soros's donation to BLM. Did Soros organize BLM protests, or were they organically born as a result of several high-profile killings of Black Americans? Have some sense. Great point.
Access to Wellington Street, where Rideau Street becomes Wellington Street. And just beyond that is where some of the arrests have been taking place. Beyond that area, the protesters are not in control. There are police in control. But as we look at this area here, you can see protesters milling around everywhere. Look down here at the fence that's surrounding the parliamentary compound. This was one of the last things we saw happen, and it sort of had to happen to make this police operation possible. In addition to the regular iron fence that's always there, a couple of nights ago, trucks came in here with a lot of these panels of steel fencing that we now see propped up with 2x4s there. And this appears to be an attempt to prevent people from just scattering into the parliamentary compound. If there were a police operation...
Christian Grouse here says, my Facebook is full of ads promoting this trucker bullshit. Facebook is a fucking hellhole. My first video on this, that I posted to Facebook, my God, you should read the comments. If you want to lose hope in humanity, read the comments on that video. It was the first video, I think it was called like, what was it called? I don't know. The Freedom Convoy's Melting Brains. So if you find that on my Facebook feed, facebook.com/TRN show, scroll down, you could, I don't know, past 3 weeks, it's there somewhere. But the comments on that video are completely insane. There was one person commented, so I got a lot of, I also got hate messages from that as well. But one person commented on the video saying, look at this guy. He gets his facts from articles. Oh my God, what a loser. It's like, yeah, I don't make them up. I look at reporting that I trust, people that I trust, that I know have been consistently correct with objective reality. I look at that reporting and say, hey, look, here are some objective facts, as opposed to making them out of thin air. But for some people, that is like, that's, you know, why I'm not trustworthy, is because I rely on reliable people for some of the facts of a situation. It is just incredible.
During the week, in what appears to be not only, you know, an attempt to allow people to go to the bathroom, but also seems to have been an attempt to make some kind of a political statement.
Evan,
behind this frontline barricade, yeah.
Sorry, you go ahead, Evan.
Okay, so behind this frontline barricade made of trailers and trucks, you can see what we were talking about a little while ago, one of these snow barricades. You see the wall of snow that's been put up there by protesters. It's more of a symbolic barrier than anything else, but that's clearly a sort of a second line of defense to pose an obstacle to any police who are coming through trying to clear this out. And then from there on, it's just trucks, tents, the protest's main stage, and the actual core protest, the core occupation directly in front of Parliament, proceeds for a couple more blocks, more like 4 blocks down Wellington Street there. So this is really the heart of the protest area that we've got this bird's eye view down into now. And just looking around, you don't see a lot of police in here. There are some, you know, there are squad cars that occasionally come by with their lights flashing. We saw a canine unit of the Ontario Provincial Police a short while ago by a squad car down there on Elgin Street. But basically, it's just protesters milling around, in some cases even with pets, and certainly in some cases with children. So there's still hundreds of pedestrians here on the street, and they appear to be just you know, walking around taking their time. We don't see a lot of fear, panic in the people that we're close to. We just see the same sorts of behaviors as we've been seeing all through the protest today, even though the police, as we say, are only a couple hundred yards away.
Here, just since we've entered the ending portion of this stream, I just want to share some of the initial comments, or I should say direct messages I got on Facebook after my initial video on this convoy. Check this guy out. How much are you being paid to lie about the convoy? Trudeau paid Antifa $45 million. Already we're into crazy territory. I'm Canadian. I will tell you right now, this is not far right anything. Not far right anything. Where's my reference here? Not far right anything. QAnon, Liberal Party, Islamists, Soldiers of Odin, Yellow Vests, Canada, it's racist, Clarion Project, Anglo-Saxon replacement. Not far right anything. The convoy is 370 miles long. That's 596 kilometers. I'm not sure why, if this person's Canadian, why did they lead with miles and not kilometers? East and West met up in Ottawa today, and if you think that 200,000 truckers are all right-leaning, you're dead wrong. Maybe you should get a new job. For some reason, job is capitalized. I don't know why. Oh my God. But this is the shit. Here's one I got. Hey, F-Job, bend over. We are coming for you. Nice little threat there. Threat to my life. Nice little rape threat. Just another day. 28% is a small fraction. Oh yeah, this is one where they all struggle with your. So for some reason, this is like a common theme with these brainwashed people. You're a joke. You're a demonizing idiot. You're a F-tard. You're a effing idiot. Okay. So it just gives you a little taste of, you know, the kind of reactions that Facebook gets you. YouTube, thankfully, is much better. That said, I also don't, there's no way to message me on YouTube. So that also probably benefits me, as I don't have to see messages from YouTube people. Like, I'll see the comment section. Comments are usually pretty good. But Yeah. Koru says, keep your sense of humor, David. I have to. Doing this shit and seeing the kind of crap I get, I have to. If I can't laugh at it, then what am I doing? I would just be way too depressed. Jody says, I work in education and UR is a problem. I definitely have issues with spelling. Like there are certain words I just will not know how to spell regardless. But for whatever reason, when it comes to their, like EIR, ERE, or your, like, you know, apostrophe RE or your, like, that stuff is easy to me. Like I have no issue with grammar. But when it comes to like spelling, there's a problem.
To anything else that has ever happened here, the amount of space that this demonstration has taken up with its footprint, the amount of noise, the fumes, etc., just the dislocation, the shuttering of businesses has been unlike anything else that's ever happened here.
Okay, Evan Dyer, always appreciate your insight. We'll get back to you in a little bit. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Hannah. And as Evan was just mentioning, the protest has had a huge impact on many Ottawa residents and business owners over the past 3 weeks. Our focus today has been on protesters and
Vincent says, David, you do good work. I have shared your material many times. You are always well thought out and well composed. Thank you, Vincent. I like seeing kind messages. Thank you so much. Are they actually going on to different news now?
Day after day, but now we're seeing a light end of the tunnel. You know, it's coming along. I guess, you know, we will be okay.
People are just torn apart. It's added a lot of division, you know, topped onto the pandemic and everything else. It's stressful.
The convoy's been really disturbing. It's blocked us from traveling. It's really disturbed our dogs' sleep, our lives.
I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning thinking, are those horns? So they're in my head, and they've just been in my head for 3 weeks, whether they're there or not. So there were no horns, I just heard them.
I'm going to show you the horns.
And a reminder, we are standing by for a news conference by Ottawa Police. They're expected to give an update on their operation to clear the downtown core at 3:45 Eastern. We will have that for you live just as soon as it begins right here on CBC News Network. Hello, I'm Andrew Nichols. You're watching our special coverage of what is happening in Ottawa as police action is underway. I'm joined in Ottawa by the CBC's Hannah Thibodeau, who has also been following this on a very dynamic day.
All right, here is what people in Ottawa, citizens there, just living their lives, have been dealing with. In fact, so let me get the tweet first. 6:45 in the morning, or 54. Am I dyslexic? I think I am. 6:54 in the morning in Ottawa. This is what it sounds like for the residents of Ottawa. What about their freedom to live without unending pollution and noise outside their homes? Check out this.
It's 6:54 in the morning in Ottawa, and this is what the residents of Ottawa have to deal with every single morning. What about their freedom?
That was just 14 seconds. That's been going on for 3 weeks. Again, any successful protest will disrupt the economy. That I care less about. I care more about the actual individuals impacted. The ones that are living here. The ones that have been harassed. This shit going on. That is considered to be torture according to the Geneva Convention. This is sound torture going on for 3 weeks. This would drive me fucking crazy. It's unbelievable that it went on that long.
Going on.
Well, first of all, I'm very pleased to see some of the big rigs leaving voluntarily, and I'm sure that behind the scenes there are.
Let me get some chats here. Justin, did I read this one already? I did not. Says, David, you've helped me see so many new perspectives. I'm glad you are doing what you do. By chance, could you cover your take on Russia and Ukraine in one of your segments? I'd love to hear your perspective on it. I'll be honest with you. It's one story I have not read all that much about, not engaged in. for various reasons. For one, I find war to be, or the potential for war, at least when it comes to this part of the world, it's super depressing. I don't want to engage with it unless there's something serious to think about. I feel like a lot of the coverage has been essentially manufactured by American media to try and drum up war. So that's my opinion on it. I don't think Russia is a serious threat at the moment. According to citizens in Ukraine and the Ukrainian government, they're not worried right now. It's Biden, it's the U.S., it's defense contractors that appear to be trying to drum up this war and try to get, try to get people ready for a war, which makes me think they're trying to help to instigate a war here. That said, if Russia is putting, military on the border with Ukraine, seems like a bit of an escalation. But then you can say, well, they just don't want Ukraine to join NATO. Okay, but maybe don't set up your friggin' military on the border. But that said, it appears to be something drummed up by largely Americans. But in terms of doing a whole video on it, I just don't. I have a hard time caring is ultimately the biggest issue. So because I'm one person, this is ultimately the problem with me and my channel is I'm one person. So because I'm limited in my ability to take in information every day, I have to pick and choose what I'm going to cover. So I've been following this a lot instead. This convoy, since it's Canada, I tend to focus, when we get to big foreign policy discussions, I will cover, certain things. But I want to ensure I am getting some Canadian coverage as well. So when a big story like this is happening, I want to make sure I'm covering this. So I'm covering this instead of, another foreign policy story that doesn't interest me as much. But that's kind of my approach. I have to pick and choose what I'm going to cover. Slightly X says freedom spelled with various capitalizations. Colton Deer says Ram Ranch. I know a little bit about that, but not all that much. I haven't followed that too closely. But I do think it's kind of, I have to say, my understanding of Ram Ranch, I think it's kind of weird to, use homophobia as a way to try and attack conservatives. I don't, if that's what's going on, I don't really think that's all that great. But again, I'm not all that informed on the whole Ram Ranch thing. James Offer says, have you had to separate yourself from friends and family who supported the convoy? How have you navigated burnout from engaging with conservatives? 2 great questions. There is somebody in my life that is within my family, not close family, but in my family, that did indeed support the convoy. They got a little, how should I put this? Very mean for no reason. Very personal for no reason. So I simply stopped responding to them. So that's how I dealt with that. If somebody is fucking crazy, I don't want them to zap my energy. So I have completely cut them out currently. Maybe that will change in the future, but I don't know. In terms of navigating burnout, let's listen to this first. Hold up.
Is Murray listening in with us too? With Chris Harkins from the OPP and Mike Duhem from the RCM.
So because for Americans, they speak in French and English, so there's going to be translation, in case you're wondering.
Remarks from Interim Chief Bell, and then we will proceed to a 10 to 15-minute question period. Je suis l'agent Param Singh et modérateur pour la période de questions de 15 à 20 minutes. Nous commençons d'abord par l'énoncé du chef par intérim, Steve Bell.
Thank you, Pram. Thank you. Bonjour à tous. We're here to provide you today with an update on our operations to end the unlawful protests that have done so much damage to our community and so much harm to our residents. The operational plan is moving ahead as we expected, and the contingencies we've put in place are effectively dealing with the threats we're seeing on the ground. I thank the Ottawa residents for their patience and support as they watch this operation unfold. I also thank all the planners, officers, and emergency personnel, many of whom have come from across the country to assist us. I'm proud to work with all of them. Their assistance has been vital to the success we are seeing so far in this operation. We're in control of the situation on the ground and continue to push forward to clear our streets. This methodical and well-resourced plan will take time, and we are here to see it through to a safe ending. Last night, we began to take additional actions towards implementing our operation. We moved officers and equipment into key positions throughout the city and took up 100 checkpoints around the downtown core. We began making arrests of key individuals who were responsible for organizing these unlawful activities. This morning, public order units and a significant number of officers were deployed to support our operations. We first focused on the Nicholas Street area, where unlawful protests were gathered with trucks. Even this morning, all unlawful protesters were given many opportunities to leave. Officers then turned to the intersection of Rideau and Sussex, making more arrests and clearing that location. As of 3 p.m. today, we've arrested 70 people. They have been charged with multiple various offenses, including mischief. Work is underway by the City of Ottawa to remediate and clean up the area that we have gained back today. We also saw children that were present in the area. We've prepared for this and have plans to ensure that these children are unharmed during our operation. Before I take questions, I want to acknowledge that these are not the images that Ottawa residents want to see. Ottawa is a welcoming and diverse city. It's a city we're all proud of. We regularly host lawful and peaceful protests. This is Family Day weekend, and usually our downtown is filled with people enjoying the city, our market, and the canal. We're focused on returning our city to the place that we all know and love. We will run this operation 24 hours a day until the residents and community have their entire city back. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you ask anyone to come to the microphone? Please identify yourself by name and media, and you have one question with a follow-up question.
Thank you. Joanne Kinello, CBC News. Hi, Chief Bell. You know, I was out at Mackenzie Avenue and Rideau, and many officers of many units are out there holding the line there, sort of pushing the folks westbound, I guess, on Wellington. It's getting to be late in the afternoon, and I'm just wondering, as much as you can you tell us what the plan is now? When I was there anyway, for about an hour, everyone was sort of just standing still, more or less. Obviously, people would like to know how long this would take. I don't know if you can say that, but maybe if you can say about what might happen overnight and what the next steps are. Thank you.
So we have articulated from the very beginning, we have a very deliberate and methodical plan that's been extremely well resourced. I want to thank Commissioner Carrique, Commissioner Lucky, every police chief across the...
Okay, it's getting kind of boring. So they've arrested, I think you said, 70 people? Sounds like largely minor offenses. Let me finish James's question. Have you navigated burnout from engaging with conservatives? Oh, sorry. How have you navigated burnout from engaging with conservatives? I don't engage with that many in my personal life. So, because I don't think it's all that, well, actually, no, to be fair, I don't know that many. So that's kind of the reason for that. I am lucky in that sense. But in terms of engaging online, I limit my engagement. Like I put my videos out. I try to inform people. You know, if somebody has a question in the comment section and I see it, I don't always, I can't read every comment on YouTube. It's impossible. But if I'm going through the comments, which sometimes I do, and I can clarify something, I'll do that. If somebody's just simply trolling, then they're trolling and there's no point engaging with them. But if they're not trolling and there's actually legitimate questions and from a conservative perspective, I address those as calmly and as as objectively as I can. But because there's not many in my life, a lot of what actually appear to be conservatives online, the way they operate online is just very, instigatey, trolly. They don't actually want to have, a conversation, or they don't want to actually engage with a real question. And like this is the issue now. If you're a conservative in this day and age, then I have to assume you're also socially conservative. Like, I can engage with you on economic issues, because that, that stuff people just don't know and they need to be informed, and that's one thing. But if you're like a bigot, you're racist, you're xenophobic, how am I going to change your mind? I'm likely not going to. So why should I engage with you at all? That's, I'll engage with you if you're good faith and you actually have questions and you're curious about things. That's one thing. But if you're, openly a terrible person, why am I going to waste my energy on you? I guess is kind of my point on that. I saw another question earlier. Yuri Jai says, did you get a kick out of Kyle Klinsky's V-Day post with Crystal showing his tats? I'm actually kind of surprised Progressive Voice hasn't done a video on this yet. No, of course. I'm very happy for Kyle and Crystal. I got to say, caught me off guard. Did not expect it. Because I thought she was married, but I guess she's not now. So I was surprised, but no, I'm very happy. Very happy that they're happy. And I think I already knew Kyle had tattoos, because I think he's talked about that.
With every police service, every law enforcement agency across Canada, unparalleled and absolutely amazing. I'm very proud of how our community, of how our police agencies and how all other support services have come together to mobilize to end this unlawful demonstration.
And I noticed that some of the police from Quebec have tear gas. Are you prepared to use tear gas, and is that a last resort?
So we've developed a well-articulated plan. We continue to work with the protesters, the demonstrators, to encourage them to leave the area. We have a very well-scripted warning that's provided to them, and up in every moment that they can leave, they are afforded.
All right, I think I'm winding down here. You see there, slowly but surely, getting rid of this protest. There's really not that many people left, just like a condensed little pocket of people there. They have this time oddly placed in the camera. I'm not sure why, but there's people right there. And this truck is moving. Ones that aren't are going to be towed, more than likely. So I will take any and all questions, comments, super chats. I'll take all super chats, and then I'll take any random comments that I may want to answer. Rick Dumace says the Progressive Voice always got annoyed when people asked him about Crystal and Kyle smiling at each other. What? Smiling at each other constantly. That's hilarious. Celeste says Kyle isn't ready to be a stepfather. It's getting weird. Come on now. You don't know Kyle in his personal life. He seems like a responsible guy to me. I'm sure he's up for it. Look, I thought I wasn't ready to have kids, and then I had a kid, and once you have a child, you become ready. Like, it forces you to be ready. You don't have a choice. So, assuming it's that serious, I'm sure he'll be fine. Adam R says, thanks for all your work, David. Thank you, Adam. Some of these I feel like I shouldn't even read. But James says, how about John Idarola and Anna Kasparian? Anna's husband should be awfully jealous the way Anna looks at John. Anna is married and John is married. They're married to different people. I'm sure they're just good friends. Like, I would hope if I work with somebody for like 10 years that they smile at me occasionally. Like, if you work with someone that long and you host a show with them and they're always like scowling at you, that's a problem. They should be smiling. That doesn't mean there's anything else there. It's just that they enjoy their friendship. Foley Insider says, arguing with the majority of conservatives is about as pointless as waterboarding a fish. Keep up the good work, David. Enlighten where you can. Yeah, I hear that. Look, nothing against, like, depending on what I'm covering and what I'm talking about, I also, like in my videos, I will alter like the way I say certain things as a way to try and educate certain audiences. So if I have a certain video that, I don't know, for some reason I'm trying to change the mind of a conservative audience, I will be conscious of that and approach that video in a way where I am doing that. All of my videos, I have very specific, like there's an intention behind it. Usually it's simply just to inform, like, hey, this thing's going on, check out what's going on, here's the details from a like working class perspective. That's generally what my coverage is. But sometimes, I don't know, there's like a cultural issue, like say maybe like Dave Chappelle. So I'll be conscious of how I approach the discussion around his transphobic comment in his stand-up and do it in a way where I want to be clear that I am looking at this from a objective perspective, in the sense that if you don't agree with me, even if you don't agree with me, you understand why I arrived at my position. So like I discussed, I don't want to go over the Chappelle thing, but like I discussed, I still found a lot of that special very funny. I think he's a very funny man. But when he goes on and doesn't even make a joke, like when he's not making a joke, he's simply saying that gender is a fact, and that's not a punchline. He's just stating it like he's preaching, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. That's a very specific criticism about a very specific thing that is unrelated to trying to stamp down on comedy, generally, or the ability for comedians to discuss certain topics. So I'm very, conscious in my approach depending on what I'm talking about.
In being able to control the number of protesters that you see in the downtown area today. The second aspect of that legislation is the fact that they go in and seize financial records and the finances of those that are contributing to the truckers. And so those two things are extremely important in making sure that this comes to a peaceful resolution, as so far it is. I'm not.
Unconquered Sun says, hello to you, Mr. Dole. I do wonder how this convoy will affect the next election. My fear is more support for the PPC. If this sentiment continues, if the pandemic continues, and health measures, vaccines are still a topic of conversation, then I think you're correct. I do think it will help the PPC. Actually, well, it may help the Conservatives if they have a leader that is into all this garbage. So the former leader recently was forced out by other Conservative MPs, and largely it was at the beginning of this whole thing. And it likely would have happened anyways, but I think it happened sooner because of the convoy. And he was someone who was trying to be a little more socially liberal in at least his language, his approach. They voted against conversion therapy, for example. So they supported the liberals in voting in getting rid of or in banning conversion therapy. So there is that attempt to try and be a little more, socially liberal on the most basic things. Like that should be an obvious, a given. Yes, of course, conversion therapy is torture. We shouldn't, have a debate about this. But that said, he was trying to be more liberal in that sense. So now the brain dead crazies are taking over, apparently. So you have someone in I'm losing my voice now for real. Someone in Aaron O'Toole's place, the former leader's place, who is more pro this garbage. For now, she's the interim leader. There's going to be, of course, a leadership race to see who's going to replace O'Toole permanently. But Pierre Poilievre is likely going to be, at least in terms of how it's going right now, seems to be the front runner for the next leader, and he has very extremist views, at least in terms of the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. So if that's the case, then it may actually help the Conservatives as well as the PPC if they go even crazier, which I'm sure they will. But look at this. Big rig leaving. So we will see the impact on the election. But definitely, that's part of their project. That's what we saw during the last election, is the PPC was trying to funnel this anti-vax conspiracy crap into their party. And I believe they got more votes. I think they did. They got like 4 times more votes than the Green Party did. So they were able to utilize this garbage message to pull people from Conservatives, pull people from the Green Party even, because you have a section of that Green Party support that is into, that kind of anti-vax crap. And, from all parties, of course. But the biggest chunks from what I remember is from the Conservative Party and from the Green Parties is where a lot of the PPC, where a lot of their new support came from. All right. God, can you imagine? I find it hard to drive like a normal sized truck. Like the actual working class truckers, I have a lot of respect. Like it's long hours on the road, maneuvering shit like this in like tiny downtown spaces. That takes some skill. All right.
The foreground here in front of this fence. This is the area where these trucks have been. Right here, we see these trucks lined up like sardines. Those are trucks that were brought here a few days ago that used to be on residential streets. Came here as part of a deal between Tamara Leach, who's now been arrested, the convoy organizer, and Mayor Jim Watson, in order to take some of the pressure off Ottawa residents by concentrating this protest and blockade downtown on Wellington Street, where very few people actually live. But that rank of trucks previously had about a dozen or 13 in it, and it extended all the way to where you see this deflated bouncy castle here, which was inflated earlier today. That's how many trucks have left this area. Those were mostly just the semi part, the tractor part of the trailer leaving, and making that decision not to stick around, not to be the bitter enders who get arrested.
I got to say, to as we near the very end of the stream, I know I keep saying that, but I'm now getting ready to go. I'm very happy that the police took a measured approach. For one, it's the right thing to do, to de-escalate as opposed to escalate and, beat people. I'm glad for that reason, but also for them not giving there's no, meat here for conservative media to be like, oh my God, look at this. They are beating down these freedom fighters in the streets. Like there's nothing for them to work with. Now, of course, they will still try and drum up something, but they're of course not going to mention how there were kids there, how these people were using their children to try and come between them and the police. Like they're not going to bring up any of that shit. They're not going to bring up who these leaders, as I've showed you a million times now, who they actually are, their actual intentions. How this is not about freedom. But that said, I'm glad they took that measured approach for a variety of reasons. So good to see that this appears to largely be coming to an end now. I know there's still trucks here, but they're going to tow these. I know there's still people there, but slowly but surely they will be removed. And I think that was the right approach. Eric on the web says, on YouTube side of things, I do consistently see vids from your channel. Yay, algorithm. I think that's the first time anyone has ever said that to me. Usually it's like, I was unsubscribed somehow, or I can't find your videos, or they always suggest somebody else. So I'm glad that I'm suggested. Usually that also means you watch my content like on a consistent basis. Because if you skip a week, then that's how the algorithm will forget about me completely, and then you'll have to come find me again to find my videos. But that's also why, if you're still here, that means you like me. that means you enjoy this stuff. That means you like this coverage. So hit that subscribe button right now below this video. Make sure you are a subscriber. It's completely free. It's subscribing. It's not a big deal. Hit subscribe. And then once you're subscribed, there's a little bell icon beside that subscribe button somewhere under the video. Hit that bell icon to receive all notifications. I only post 1 to 2 videos a day, so I'm not disrupting your time. I'm not going to bother you. Just a couple times a day at most, you're going to see a notification of a video popped up, and that will help me as well, as YouTube largely suppresses independent media. I mean, the other day I was watching I forget who it was, some progressive show, but after the video ended, it started playing what was it, a Seth Meyers clip. Like, this is what normally happens. I'm watching, and I kept having to change back. Like, I had it on like autoplay in the background because I was doing other stuff, so it would go to the next video. It would be like Seth Meyers. I've changed it. Okay, I'm gonna watch another video. Then next video, it's like Joe Rogan clip, and then okay, change it back. And the next video, it's John Oliver. Like, oh my God, like I don't want to see any of this. I just want to see what I currently subscribe to. Like, I subscribe to a lot of independent media. Just show me other videos from people that I'm subscribed to. But no, it kept pushing all this other corporate garbage on me. And look, nothing against, Seth Meyers has the okay. He's fine for a late night host compared to some of the other ones. John Oliver does great work, but like, it shows you how they funnel viewers into a certain pipeline, even if you are not subscribed to them. And almost every day now, I get a notification from IGTV on my phone, Instagram, the TV app, saying, you should watch this Joe Rogan video. I'm not even subscribed to Joe Rogan. Why are you recommending me Joe Rogan on Instagram? But they do it all the time. So it's like, it's this constant, push towards these people that already have all the money, all the views, all the support. I don't want to watch them. I want to get some independent takes. I want to see some other coverage. And the only way you can definitely guarantee that is by subscribing and hitting that bell notification icon to make sure you get Make sure you get a notification when I have a video or go live. All right. Ryan Harris says, look at that great hair. You mean me? This is the problem. My hair is so long now, and I don't want to get a haircut. I hate haircuts. I hate them with a passion. But I'm gonna have to, because I can't. I'm not gonna make it long again. That would be a terrible decision. So at some point I'll get a haircut, but only when it's like a must. All right. Last couple things. Video games. No, I won't. I know most of you here probably don't care about video games, so I'm not going to bother you with that. But Horizon came out today. I'll be playing some of that. The next gen patch for Cyberpunk came out. I tried a bit of that last night. There's a free trial for like 5 hours. So there's a lot for me to do in my free time. The little free time that I have, there's a lot I want to squeeze in there. Real Texas, I get Jimmy Dore recommendations. Oh my freaking God. I am not subscribed to Dore anymore for obvious reasons. He's fucking crazy. But I have too. Like, this is the guy who claims, oh, I'm being suppressed. Why am I being suggested Jimmy Dore when I'm not subscribed to him? Who's the real corporate media? We should get to the bottom of this, because I thought it was super weird that I was getting recommended Jimmy Dore when I am not subscribed to him. Really, really odd behavior by the YouTube algorithm for sure. Oh my goodness. Shuyu, is that your name? I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Integrate. It's awesome. Final Fantasy VII Remake, freaking fantastic game. I never played the original. It was my first foray into actually any Final Fantasy game. because I just was not into Japanese turn-based RPGs when I was younger. But my God, Final Fantasy, so good. I'm looking forward to part 2. As my understanding, it's the first half of the game, so I can't wait. Kim L says, what did you think of Fox News' take on our Freedom Convoy? I have a couple of videos on that. Check the channel. One on Geraldo with a good take, and another on Tucker Carlson claiming it's a working class uprising, and I debunk that garbage. So check the channel. You will see both, because you'll see Geraldo in one thumbnail. You'll see Tucker in another thumbnail. I have one yesterday with Tucker in it, but it's a previous video. So check out those videos. Couple super chats here to end on. Sweet. By the way, if you want a super chat to get it in right now. Last 2 minutes of this stream. MMM says, I swear, Seth Meyers is always the next video on autoplay, no matter what I watched first. He's all right, though, for what he does. I agree. He's all right for what he does. But no, yeah, it's so weird. It's always him. It's like, oh, you like to watch independent progressive media? Well, you'll like Seth Meyers. And it's like, okay, maybe I will sometimes. Like, the algorithm isn't completely off. But I don't want to watch Seth Meyers. Like, I want to watch other independent media. But they funnel you. This is how the algorithm works. It funnels you to corporate-backed channels every single time. And Jimmy Dore, for some reason, as I said earlier. Weird. Jerry Ty says, great content and coverage as always. Side question, since you mentioned video games. Are you planning on playing Elden Ring? Keep up the good work. I do plan on playing it, but it's my first From Software game. I have not played any of the Dark Souls or Demon Souls or whatever. Because the idea of constant death and frustration is not appealing to me when my job is the news cycle, and it's already very depressing and debilitating. So I have avoided those games up till now. But this one has so much hype that I have to try it. That said, I'm likely not going to play Elden Ring until I beat Horizon first, and that might take me a few weeks because I don't have all that much free time. So once I beat that, then I'll check out Elden Ring, but I also want to play Cyberpunk. I'm also in the middle of playing Yakuza is it called Enter the Dragon? The recent one, that's the RPG one. That's also a good game. So I'm like, I'm also playing Guardians of the Galaxy. So I got a lot in my backlog that I want to finish. Jeff Growendale. Fantastic, very generous super chat. My goodness, thank you, Jeff. Says, big preach for the work you do. Been following for a while now. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. That is a very generous super chat. I super appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Look at that drone. This is one consistent theme. They definitely surveil you at these places. So yeah, just be aware of that. Somebody says Rational National Twitch. Twitch is so weird now. So ever since they cut off my partnership for no reason at all, I go into my settings. I can't even apply to be an affiliate, even though it says I have met the goals to be an affiliate. I can't even apply for it. I'm not going to. Here's the thing. I hate Twitch. The platform is fine, but in terms of whoever's running Twitch, it's impossible to speak to anybody that's human there. So until they can fix that crap, or until it fixes itself, it's very unlikely, because I might as well just stream games on here. Or I might as well just, play alone on my on my actual television as opposed to a small monitor. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. All right. This has been fun. You see, it's coming to an end. 70 people arrested by police, charged with various offenses. I know at least 3 of the organizers were arrested. Anyways, I went through all of this. If you came in late, go to the beginning. Watch all, how long has this been? All 3 hours. 3 hours I've been here. That's a whole Braveheart right here. You can watch the entirety of the stream, learn a lot more than these last 10 minutes. So thank you all for showing up, and I'll see you all next time. All right. Goodbye. Have a good time. Have a good weekend. Goodbye.